Donkey Godzilla Movie Marathon, where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and that's a lot of fish. And also, I've seen 15 Godzilla movies.
We are talking about the 23rd film in the Godzilla franchise, the first Godzilla film to be completely produced by a Hollywood studio, and as of now, the only Godzilla film ever directed by an openly queer person, 1998's American Godzilla.
Ooh, I'm trying not to immediately react to that.
How many people did I just want to jump into the ocean by saying that? Also known as, of course, Gojira in Japanese, released in the United States on May 20th, 1998. This movie was directed by our boy Roland Emmerich, written by Dean Devlin and Emmerich himself, produced by Dean Devlin with visual effects by Volker Engel, and a score by David Arnold. Don't we know him? Not David Arnold of Gimmicks and Fear Coded and Are You My Mother fame. Sadly, though, you know what? I'm sure he could do it. He could probably crank out the score too if he wanted to.
Give him a weekend to figure it out.
Yeah, you know. We'd like to take a quick moment to thank our spectacular patrons, Bo, Carl, Katie, Jason, Zoe, James, Keith, Cody, Toby, Hamish, and Schroedelbauer.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us do this, because this is, of course, the movie that everyone wanted us to talk about, I'm sure.
Thank you all for allowing us to talk about this movie. We're doing it specifically because of you.
Yeah, this is because of you.
You are responsible. No, I'm excited to talk about this one.
am.
It was going to come eventually.
Truly, I don't even know. Yeah, this is how we're ending the year 2024, and weirdly seems appropriate.
Beautiful.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start. Doug, what's feelings? What's your deal with this movie?
Okay, well, I think, oh my gosh. I was telling Derek ahead of time, this is the first and probably only movie where I feel like I will have stuff to actually contribute just from my own sort of experience and knowledge. And I'm eager to talk about it, but I do think we probably should start with why is this movie? How did this movie end up happening? I know we've mentioned it a little bit before when we were talking about the Japanese movie that came immediately after this, but how did this end up happening, Derek?
Okay, yeah, we're just going to jump into this. The story behind this movie is really interesting, and then I guess we can talk about our experiences and stuff with it leading up to it, because we actually had experiences in this movie when it came out. So yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, cool. So American Godzilla, there's a long history of trying to get an American movie off the ground from as early as the 60s. Henry Saperstein, we've brought him up, big American collaborator with Toho, right? Had been wanting to try and to get some sort of American Hollywood version of Godzilla off the ground. It really wasn't until the 90s that he was able to get the idea to anyone who was listening at a time when Toho would also be okay with it. He basically passes the torch for this to producers Kerry Woods and Robert Fried in about 1991. So this is still early 90s, right? To put it in a timeline, that's the same year that Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah comes out in the Heisei era. So feels like a whole world away from this movie coming out. And funny enough, not funny. This actually is not funny. Saperstein would actually die about 5 weeks after the 1998 film gets released. Ooh. So in a way, getting this movie made was kind of his last act with the Godzilla franchise before he died, for better or worse.
That's complicated feelings, I'm sure.
Right, sure. Now, this is happening in tandem with Toho kind of wanting to find a way to pass the torch to America throughout the 90s. If you watch, we talked about it, but if you watch their Heisei movies, they're constantly courting American audiences in one way or another. They've got American characters and English-speaking actors there. They've got, their references to American movies are obviously also there for Japanese audiences, but it's, there with the hopes that Americans could also latch onto it as well. And the idea was sort of that based on box office numbers and just sort of the general cultural consciousness, this is not particularly insightful, but Americans like American Hollywood productions made by Americans with people speak English.
No way.
But also in Japan, Japanese audiences tended to also prefer Hollywood productions made by Americans. As we've cited many times, the Heisei Godzilla movies would usually be beaten in the box office by things like Back to the Future, right?
And then reference them back in movies after the fact.
So it's like, okay, well, if America's making American movies and doesn't want to see our Japanese exports, and Japanese people are also watching American movies, then why don't we just have Hollywood in America just make a Godzilla movie so Americans will watch their Godzilla movie and like it. Japanese people will watch a Godzilla movie and like it, made by America because they like American movies. And then we, Toho, can reap all the benefits of our character getting licensed, reap all the benefits of our merchandise, but shoulder basically none of the risk because we didn't make the fucking movie. It truly is like kind of galaxy brain. It makes perfect sense.
And you know what? Everyone enjoyed it, both in the United States and Japan, and it was an absolute success as they predicted, right?
Right, of course. This ties into the last movie we covered, actually. Godzilla vs. Mothra in Japan, we said was a huge hit, and I think that kind of gave Woods and Freed leverage in America to be like, hey, look how good a Godzilla movie did in Japan. There obviously is an audience, even though we're not seeing this in America at this time in the early 90s, there is an audience for Godzilla. And if we make it, we can really latch onto that. There is value in this IP, right? So Sony and, their film production subsidiary TriStar do take the bait for that. So they start developing it. There's directors courted like James Cameron, Tim Burton, Joe Johnston, who directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Paul Verhoeven was approached. He apparently passed on it immediately. I mean, all of those movies obviously would be very like different specific movies,
sure.
But I think all of them, for one reason or another, either passed on it or couldn't make it work or were busy or something like that, right?
Which is how we get to...
Well, here's the thing, Doug. Because at first, in 1993, TriStar offered it to our boys, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin. Here's the thing. They turn it down like 4 times.
I don't think it's really a surprise that the story is that they weren't interested initially.
Yeah. And to put it in the context of the timeline, in 1993, they had just done Universal Soldier together. They had not yet released Stargate, and I don't think they'd even started production on Independence Day. So this is actually still pretty early for them.
And this is wild, and this is where I can begin to jump in, because one thing that Derek is aware of, that maybe some other people are aware of, is that I do genuinely often buy what Roland Emmerich is selling when he's not being problematic as fuck. He is one of my favorite problematic gays, but
yes,
but I do frequently buy what he sells. I feel like I get Roland Emmerich when it comes to the movies that he makes. So it's not really a surprise to me that he ends up doing a Godzilla movie, or that he is looked at for a Godzilla movie. It is fascinating that he was being offered a Godzilla movie as early as 1993, because to me, it makes sense to me that you would offer Roland Emmerich a Godzilla movie after Independence Day.
I agree.
Here's what I did for this podcast, because I obviously don't do research for this podcast, because part of what I do is learn on the fly, right? But what I can contribute is that I love Roland Emmerich and am often buying what he's selling. So I watched, in preparation for this, every written and directed by movie from Roland Emmerich, which of course includes Stargate and Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow and 10,000 BC and 2012 and Independence Day 2 and my favorite, Moonfall. And I do think it was valuable because it does give me a better picture of like what a Roland Emmerich movie is, especially what they've become, which I think is particularly interesting after Godzilla. And so I got to go into Godzilla, which I specifically rewatched after all of those to evaluate both, is this a good Godzilla movie? Is this a good Roland Emmerich movie? Because if I'm buying what Roland Emmerich specifically is selling often, I think it's only fair that I am also evaluating, if it's not a good Godzilla movie, is it at least a good Roland Emmerich movie? Like Roland Emmerich subgenre movie,
Yeah, we will talk about that, because I definitely have a take on that as well.
And it is interesting to watch all those things, because like do start to notice very distinct patterns of what Roland Emmerich likes to include in his movies.
Yeah.
And like it's interesting because some of those patterns do develop after the fact, but you can kind of see some of those things in Godzilla.
Yeah.
So Roland Emmerich, I tried to to find some things that you can put on your Roland Emmerich written and directed by bingo card and have a pretty good chance of getting a bingo. Not a surprise, master of disaster, loves a catastrophic event, the scale of which often is truly unimaginable. Think 2012, think Moonfall. The world will end. You know what I mean?
He's good at that, like uniquely good at that kind of level scale of disaster movie. Yeah.
It is truly what he does best. Like,
yeah.
Destroying the world is what Roland Emmerich does best, which is a wild sentence, but it's true. He does love like a sort of indistinct or safe, like leading white man. So your Kurt Russells, your Matthew Brodericks, your Dennis Quaid's, your Patrick Wilsons, you know, like there's always one of those. Sometimes
Will Smith was kind of the outlier. And I think that only worked because Will Smith was at a really unique point in his career. Also I feel like Independence Day is even more, I feel like he's kind of pinned as a co-lead with Jeff Goldblum in a way.
Okay, yes.
You know?
Because here's the thing. Will Smith is absolutely first billed on that movie and is exactly who you think of first when you're watching that movie. But go rewatch that movie and tell me that Will Smith is the lead of the movie, because I don't think it's true. I think
it's much more of an ensemble movie.
Right. I think he's just uniquely popular at that time. And I think it becomes kind of even more obvious when you watch Resurgence, which, like, minor spoilers for Resurgence, like Will Smith's son is a character and still is like not the obvious first lead of the movie. So he does love his sort of like, I don't know, like weird sort of like safe dad energy guys. Yeah. He does love a large cast, which I think we will talk about. Loves a large cast. He loves divorced couples. He loves breakups with deep history. He loves outrageous car or vehicle sequences. Loves jumping things that are not meant to be jumped. Loves destruction, obviously, master of disaster, especially in the form of tidal waves, which I mentioned for a particular reason.
Oh my God, yeah.
He does love, and I wish he loved it more. You know how in like every Star Wars property, at least in the movies, and often in TV shows, somebody says, I've got a bad feeling about this, or I have a bad feeling about this. Mm-hmm. Roland Emmerich loves a "we were wrong" moment, and sometimes it is literally somebody in the movie saying, but we were wrong, or but I was wrong. I wish he did that in every single movie, because there's always an opportunity for it. But he loves a like "we were wrong" moment.
Does that happen in this movie?
In Godzilla, no one literally says "we were wrong," but there are moments that are absolutely like Matthew Broderick easily could have said, "I was wrong," or somebody from the military easily could have said, "but we were wrong."
The military could have said it like 47 times in this movie.
Right. But he loves those moments. I think it's 2012 and maybe Day After Tomorrow where people literally say, "But we were wrong." Like, we thought the world would end on this day, but we were wrong. We thought it would take this long, but I was wrong. Loves the U.S. president, including them. Loves the military, which is, you know. But then there's this movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this movie is also like, what if the military actually fucking sucks?
Right.
But anyway.
He does love an outcast but cool scientist or similar, right? So you have James Spader.
Yeah,
you
Matthew
have
Broderick
Jeff
just
Goldblum.
is the coolest scientist you've ever seen.
Did you see the hat, Derek? Did you see the hat? He's very cute, we were told.
We'll talk about Matthew Broderick.
So Matthew Broderick, I would include in that. Dennis Quaid is this sort of like outcast scientist sort of guy. And then Ejiofor in 2012 is this sort of like outcast scientist. But here's the thing. I say outcast but cool because they're often juxtaposed against an even outcastier, not cool scientist or outright whack job. So you have Spiner in the Independence Day movies. You have the, for me specifically, wildly underused Denari or whatever his name is in this movie. You have Lewis, who I also would kind of include in that. She's playing, I think Vicki Lewis is kind of playing like a wackier scientist. But then you have Woody Harrelson in 2012 as like this absolute whack job conspiracy theorist. And then you have John Bradley in Moonfall, who is this sort of like conspiracy theorist up against the outcast astronaut that is Patrick Wilson. Mm-hmm. He loves heterosexuality. Roland Emmerich loves straight people so much.
I think he's like trying to like live vicariously through the straight people in his movies. I I don't know. I don't know the guy personally, but I would not be surprised if he's kind of a pretty kind of self-hating kind of queer person. Just based on the movies that he makes and how he seems to be like, isn't heterosexual life the dream, you know?
Right. Because even when it's not, he's romanticizing it, right? Like the divorced couples are there specifically to intersect again and like go through something together. And they are almost always straight couples. He did at one point, you know, in recent history, meaning the past decade, include like a gay couple, but it was very much a like, oh, and also, by the way, they were gay and here they are. I don't know if you were aware of that one. Do you know that one?
No, which one is that?
Okay, more minor spoilers for Independence Day 2. Brett Spiner.
Oh, he's the king. He has a husband in that movie, right?
Yes, and it's one of the scientists from the original Independence Day, which is cool.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. It's like the sort of like one gay thing Roland Emmerich has done that I can fully get behind because we all know about Stonewall.
I was just saying, like, oh yeah, you talk about all this, like how he doesn't have gay people in this movie. He had gay people in the movie Stonewall, right?
Well, he does, but then at that point he's got to make sure that they're white. So
right. Yeah, sorry, the Brent Spiner thing. It's just
Brent Spiner. Thank you,
Brent Spiner thing. My dad, who is a big, huge Star Trek TNG fan, met Brett Spiner at a con recently for like the first time in his life, I think. But instead of asking him about Star Trek, he started asking him about Independence Day Resurgence, which he had just watched.
You know,
it was
what,
sort
though?
of like, you know, at the end of the movie, you mention how, like, your character mentions how, like, there's going to be more coming. Do you think that what do you think is going to happen? Is there going to be a third one? And Brent Spiner was sort of like, I don't know, man. Probably not. Like, I don't think he was sort of like, why are you asking me about Independence Day Resurgence?
Okay, two things. One, I would also ask him about Independence Day Resurgence because, you know, I don't know. It's also top of mind for me, and it's also the one gay Roland Emmerich thing that I enjoy. And then two, I will say, if people have not seen Independence Day Resurgence and are really into the first Independence Day, watch out, because there very easily could be a third one, and it will be bad. It will be so bad based on what they want to set up. Fortunately, Roland Emmerich has a horrible history with attempting to create trilogies, so having two of a movie is already, pretty remarkable.
Oh boy!
And then I would say Roland Emmerich used to be pretty into casual racism and xenophobia. And I think that has kind of died down. I think as he started to focus on destroying the entire world, he started focusing less on like the specific interactions with different people around the world. And I think that helps him be a little less racist.
That's good.
Maybe. He still has like specific fascinations. Like I don't know why he loves to include like Tibetan monks specifically in multiple movies of his. And I don't know what issue he has with Egypt, but he cannot accept, because it appears in two of his movies, cannot accept the fact that Africans built the pyramids. Like he cannot accept it. It was either aliens or it was either 10,000 years before by like Atlanteans or something that is never made clear. But he really can't accept that. So fortunately, he's not making movies about the pyramids anymore. Maybe he never will. And that's kind of my hope.
Yeah.
10,000 BC is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I just want to throw that out there. It's terrible. We're not going to talk about it because it doesn't really matter to any of these other movies.
Sure.
Don't know why he made it. Don't understand it. It's really, really bad.
Yeah. Thankfully, he avoids racism in this movie because there's just simply no black people and barely any Japanese people. So he just is able to avoid it, at least.
You know what's weird, though, is it actually is very bizarre that there isn't a black character, like a black main, like on the cast, not just because it's New York, but like also because it is also a pattern of Roland Emmerich's to have like a pretty diverse cast because they tend to be so big. And so like it is remarkably strange that there are zero black people that are like main members of the cast. It's like strikingly horrendous in this movie how white the cast is.
It's
weird. I think there's
really weird.
I think there's like a pilot we see a few times that's like the most
prominently
prominently featured black person
eaten. So,
right. Which is, and I'm genuinely saying it truly is weird because you think of Will Smith being like the face of Independence Day, right? And then you have these other characters in his movies. Roland Emmerich is like not even remotely afraid, or at least, the people that he casts with are not remotely afraid to have a black president, a woman president, have like, Halle Berry be in like a pretty prominent position within sort of like a NASA maybe in Moonfall. Like he's not excluding black people or people of color from his movies. So it is really bizarre that this movie just doesn't have them. Yeah. But I'm glad. Thank you all for going through the list with me, because it really is remarkable. Like you and I, Derek, and I'm not saying this to disparage Roland Emmerich. Again, I'm buying what he's selling. But you and I could write a Roland Emmerich disaster movie. Like all the parts are right there.
It is very funny when you spell all that out. It's sort of like, you just created the skeleton for this movie, and his
like signature is extremely clear.
Yeah, it's so funny, but
and that was all before I watched Godzilla. I wrote that list before I rewatched Godzilla.
That's incredible. And but what's funny though is that you said all that. Most of the movies that fit that bill, if not all of them, I don't know if Universal Soldier like falls into any of this vein. Pretty much all of those things haven't happened yet when they first offer it to him in 1993.
That's what's so weird, right? It's like somebody knew. And I should clarify, I did say that I watched all of the written and directed by, but it's Stargate onward. I didn't watch anything before that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that is really weird. So like telling me that he was offered this for the first time in 1993 is really strange, because I would have assumed he was offered it. I mean, I don't know how long it took to make this movie once he had accepted it, but like I would have assumed he was offered it either in the early days of Independence Day by somebody who was privy to what he was doing, or even with Stargate, because I do think if you watch Stargate and if you watch Independence Day, those two movies together, I do think it makes a lot of sense that Roland Emmerich is someone you would approach, because a lot of the pieces and parts of Independence Day and Stargate easily fit into a lot of older Godzilla movies. I mean, you have sort of like this sort of like myth building and these sort of like ancient or unknowable civilizations that end up intersecting with modern day people that ultimately are connected to something larger. Independence Day, I would honestly argue, is like a better Godzilla movie than this Godzilla movie. Like you really could just insert, you could either replace the aliens with some minor tweaks with kaiju and a lot of the movie could be the same, or Independence Day could literally be about one of the alien races that comes to Earth because of Godzilla, and that movie wouldn't be that different.
Yeah.
And I think Independence Day is more like a Godzilla movie that you and I have watched than this Godzilla movie we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. It's just remarkable that it was before that list could have been made.
Yeah. It is really remarkable. Yeah, no, it turned it down like no less than 4 times. And a lot of it was just sort of like the sort of view of in the 90s in America of Godzilla in the general cultural consciousness of just representing like cheese and camp. Like that's what, when people turned it down, it was sort of like, it's cheesy, it's campy. I know.
So crazy to me, because here's the thing. There's no way you make 2012 and Moonfall without knowing what you are doing. Those movies are funny, and I genuinely,
but here's the thing,
genuinely don't think they are ironically funny. I think they are funny, but they're dry funny. They're straight funny. Like they're camp, but not in the flamboyant way. They're camp in the way that you sell something ridiculous really hard.
I mean, I would argue that the movie that ends up being made of Godzilla that Emmerich makes, once he does make it, like this movie, is very unserious and more of a comedy, so it's like, if you're turning the idea of a Godzilla down because it's sort of like, well, you can't take it seriously, but then he gets it and it's like the movie that is not taken seriously whatsoever. It's confusing
weird.
To me.
It's weird because it does make me wonder if like the comedy we got was because he wasn't taking it seriously.
I mean,
because
probably. Yeah, I think it's probably part of it. That's true.
Because I think if you watch 2012, I do think, and I probably sound so crazy to people because I do genuinely get, I think, what Roland Emmerich does.
Sure, yeah.
But like 2012, because like I think a lot of people are sort of like 2012 is a bad movie, but I love it. And I'm like, no, 2012 is actually succeeding at what it's trying to do. Like it is like Roland Emmerich set out to do something and he did a pretty good job at doing it. Right. And 2012, I think, is a perfect example if you were trying to get this, what I think the humor of Roland Emmerich is. And I think if and maybe he hadn't developed it yet, right? But like,
right.
The humor that's in 2012 is like just not the humor here. And I feel like the humor here is like on the verge of like making fun of what's going on. More than it is like, this is a funny movie. It's really bizarre. Like, it's really strange and confusing.
It is.
But like Independence Day also is like not without comedy. So maybe it is a little bit closer to what he was doing at the time.
Maybe, but Independence Day is genuinely like funny and still has serious moments. And I don't.
Yeah. I think he cared more about Independence Day than he does Godzilla. Yeah. I think that's very, very clear.
Yeah. Yes. I feel like we're coming into this with like serious like cocaine energy right now, which is amazing.
I watched so many movies and have been like so excited to talk
and I was excited for you to contribute that. It's I think this movie is it's hard to talk about, I think, because of the bizarre place that it exists, in which it exists, and the baggage behind it. And it's sort of like people probably coming into the podcast being like, are they going to be just trashing a movie the whole time? Or are they going to be fierce defenders and saying that it's a masterpiece actually? And like the reality is that like there's so much that's interesting about it in the place that it exists as this fucking weird Roland Emmerich American Godzilla movie that is like famous for failing regardless of what it is. And then I think the act actually talking about the movie itself, I think this movie is really interesting to pick apart too. Yes. So I'm very excited to do that.
I think the moral of all of that, so we can move beyond it, is like, because like you said, people are probably wondering if we're going to tear it apart or like say it's a masterpiece. I think the moral of all that is like, I don't think it is a mistake to choose Roland Emmerich to do a Godzilla movie. I think it made tons of sense. I think it was probably a really smart move, probably smarter than some of the other people they were considering based on what he does or goes on to do. And I would say that the only mistake is that like they did it in 1998 and not in 2016. And I know that there was already Godzilla stuff happening at that time, so I'm not saying that shouldn't have existed in favor of a Roland Emmerich movie in 2016. But I think if you watch, you know, Independence Day Resurgence, which isn't even a good movie, but if you watch that or you watch Moonfall or you watch 2012, I think it becomes clear that like now Roland Emmerich might make a decent Godzilla movie. I know that's like maybe crazy to say, but I do think he could make a decent one. I just don't think he would, because I don't think he wants to.
Yeah. Well, if this movie didn't exist,
right?
And, like,
of course,
separated from that context, and he was offered it now. I see what you're saying.
But like, all that to say, like, I think anybody who says that like Roland Emmerich was a mistake and that's where they went wrong, I don't think that's true. I think Roland Emmerich contributes to part of the problem of this movie, but I don't think inherently just choosing him was a mistake. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's a significant confluence of problems that makes this movie what it is, in addition to the time period that it exists in, and what Godzilla is in the cultural consciousness to Americans at the time, and what the movie is trying to do to push back on it. Real quick detour, because it is important to why Emmerich ends up taking the movie. When he and Devlin, who Devlin, by the way, works with Emmerich on tons of projects. The big thing that Devlin has done independently is after this, he ends up working on like the show's Leverage and The Librarian pretty significantly. He's pretty famous for doing that.
That's wild.
Which is such a wild swing. But yeah, but for the most of the 90s and 2000s, he's like Emmerich's right-hand man, essentially, and contributes to scripts and produces his movies. So he's going to be quoted a lot in these things that I pulled, so it was important to name him.
He is, for sure. Yeah.
When they turn it down, the person who picks up the project is Jan de Bont, who is a Dutch filmmaker who had just gotten off of directing the movie Speed, and he was the cinematographer on movies like Roar, Cujo, Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October, and then after this would direct action movies like Twister. So like another one that's like kind of fucking perfect. Would do perfect for a 90s Godzilla movie. Well, if like American Godzilla movie that surely would be a head empty action movie. Like you were never going to get like a cerebral horror Godzilla movie in the 1990s.
No.
It would be an action movie. And if you're going to get an action movie to direct it for Hollywood, a director who's done stuff like Speed and who has worked on the sets for stuff like Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October, a military movie, like all of that makes perfect sense for a Godzilla movie.
Exactly, because both of those directors, you can take the pieces and parts of a disaster movie, a military movie, and an action movie, and both of them did disaster movies based on forces of nature, which we talk about all the time when it comes to Godzilla. Like, a 90s Godzilla movie, it really, I think, only makes sense to have been looking at like disaster action guys, you know?
Yeah. The script was developed by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. They get story credits on this movie, but I don't think anything from their script really ends up in this movie. It pretty much gets thrown out by Emmerich and Devlin once they get the movie. They had just come off of Disney's Aladdin is what they were doing before working on this.
That's wild.
Wild swing, but also like obviously they're good screenwriters. So, you know, I'm sure they, and I think we've talked about this many, many times. I do at some point want to do a bonus episode on the unmade Godzilla movies. So I'm not going to talk extensively about Jan de Bont's version of the movie because we'll save that for later. But like the cliff notes are, it would have been Godzilla being totally reinvented as like the creation of a secret race of Atlanteans. He would be protecting the Earth from an alien monster called the Griffin. There would have been practical effects by Stan Winston and an Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, which like, you know, if you don't know that name, best special effects people in the game, look him up. There's a whole documentary about him. Like, who would have been fucking
Roland
incredible.
Emmerich has worked with.
Right.
Okay, that's annoying to me because the only reason, and I'm sure you're going to tell me what happened, but like, the only reason that Roland Emmerich wouldn't make that movie is because Roland Emmerich didn't write that movie himself. That movie sounds so much like something he would do. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Let's see. Yeah. Like it sounds like you're combining Stargate and Independence Day together into a Godzilla movie. Yeah. And de Bont was by all accounts enthusiastic. Again, we'll talk about that movie more in depth at some point in a bonus episode. But the long and short of it is that de Bont was pretty enthusiastic about it. But just by simply having two giant monsters in it meant the projected budget was going to be close to like around $150 to $200 million, which at the time was huge for a special effects movie like that. And TriStar was like, hell no. The ironic thing is that I think once the 98 Godzilla movie gets made and like, you know, there's, you know, reshoots, production goes over budget, marketing goes over budget. It ends up ballooning to like a $200 million budget anyway. They
could have just made probably a better movie.
They could have just made a better movie for the same price that people would have actually liked probably. But at the time, TriStar's like, no, we're ditching them. Goes back to Emmerich and Devlin, who by this point have done Stargate together. Was financially successful. Independence Day is in production. It's not released, but it's looking promising. So like it makes sense that they're like, okay, again, it seems like you guys are perfect for doing this movie. Here's the script that seems like it would fit your vibe really well. And what convinces Emmerich and Devlin to do it is the fact that Jan de Bont was interested. And they're sort of like, okay, if this guy who's released these good action movies sees something in it, like obviously he's seeing something in it that we don't. So maybe we should take this on and just figure out what we want to do with it. Even if we're like reluctant about Godzilla being in our eyes cheesy and campy. And I think that also I think was probably a positive in TriStar's eyes, because it's like, if these guys are reluctant about the cheese and camp factor of Godzilla, the presumed cheese and camp factor of Godzilla, and that means that they're probably going to lean away from it. So like us as executives are probably feeling better about it because it means they're not going to do something fucking cheesy and weird, which feels safer to us as the executives.
Right. Especially for an American audience, for executive. Makes a lot of sense.
And also they were sort of like, we'll do one monster. It'll be like a $90 million budget. So they're like, cool, cheap movie, go ahead. Which bites them in the butt later, but it's like, I'm sure the money was a gigantic part of it. And that's probably why ILM isn't involved, because they're specifically going for reducing the budget. ILM would be very expensive. So let's go with like special effects people that Emmerich is more familiar with, that he's worked with before, that can do it on a smaller budget, you know?
Yeah. I also think, you mentioned it, but I really don't think it can be like overstated that Stargate was not expected to do well and did surprisingly well. So he just made this like surprising sci-fi hit that I think people took pretty seriously. It goes on. They wouldn't have known this, but goes on to like spawn an entire massive franchise.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. But the other factor is that once they get it, they're sort of like, okay, if we're going to do this, we want to develop this from scratch. So, and TriStar is like, yeah, sure. So they throw out all the previous scripts and start from scratch, essentially. And their approach makes sense to me, because I think their idea is I think like Independence Day was using new technology in the 90s to sort of modernize an old retired genre, in that case, like 50s style alien invasion pictures, and then making that palatable to a 90s audience. And I think Independence Day does that like gangbusters. That's why that movie is so fun. It feels like an old 50s sci-fi serial, but with the energy and edginess of a 90s movie.
Yeah.
That's what makes the movie work. So their idea is sort of like, in America, Godzilla is considered niche and out of date. And for us, like, you know, we've talked about like the weird releases, like basically non-releases for Heisei movies where they just weren't exporting them over to America at a certain point.
Yeah.
So it's essentially in America, a retired franchise that people think of as being from the 60s and 70s. So they could sort of do the Independence Day with Godzilla and be like, we're going to use new technology to revitalize Godzilla for the 90s in an edgy way, in like a, you know, a modern way, and feel like, and make it feel like it's sort of a throwback to an old genre that doesn't really exist for Americans anymore. And Devlin specifically said that they wanted to distance themselves from the other films while at the same time sort of paying homage to them.
That makes so much sense to me, because when you watch Independence Day, or at least when I watched it recently, like I was sort of, and I watched it in the wake of now having watched all these, you know, like Showa era and Heisei era movies. Like, it is kind of remarkable. You watch it and you're sort of like, actually, like a lot of this seems to be done in a similar, or at least like maybe not made in a similar way, but the effect or like the impact is really similar to the way that a lot of the stuff in the Heisei era feels, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not... there is plenty of, you know, special effects that are specifically 1996, but like they're also blowing up models of buildings, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's still, there's still like practical stuff in this movie that's like not unlike, you know, what they would do in the Heisei movies. So yeah. The other thing in the writing process they were inspired by was that, so there was French nuclear testing that happened off the Polynesian Islands in 1996 that caused a lot of controversy, just as any nuclear testing often does.
Of course.
So they're like, okay, well then we have this sort of modern day equivalent to nuclear testing from the Cold War and from World War II and stuff. So we're going to use that as sort of the anchor of Godzilla's origin, which is how you get all this fucking weird ass French soldier shit and suddenly putting Godzilla's dark origin on France for some reason.
Yeah.
It all comes from trying to root it in something relevant and topical, which again, if they're trying to sort of make this a modernized movie that's relevant for the 90s, it's a weird choice, but it does make sense, sort of latch it on to the most recent nuclear related thing that has happened that has been in the news.
It does make sense. And with distance, I like didn't realize that, you know, like
I didn't know that for a very long time. Yeah.
I would have assumed, and I know that this is like a few years out from the specific wave of xenophobia that comes from 9/11, but like even just in the 90s, I would have expected them to focus more on like the Middle East doing something or something over the, you know, like
God, I'm glad they didn't, because that would have been so fucking racist in this movie. Like it would have been unbelievably horrible.
But also it is Roland Emmerich in the 90s, so it wouldn't have been that weird. Yeah. I mean, Stargate is the last thing they saw him do. And that's not exactly not racist to Middle Eastern people, or, you know, and North African people. But I was surprised and confused as to why like France played a major part. So I'm glad that you have now informed me.
when I read that, I was like, because I've always been like, why? This is so weird. What did France do to you, Roland Emmerich? And it was just a topical reference is all it was ultimately. It does cast a weird shadow on this movie when you watch it, because it just feels weird that the French are so involved. It doesn't make sense, but it only makes sense when you know the sort of meta context of it.
In a way, it feels sort of like some of those like Heisei movies that got like weirdly political, but it doesn't really echo them in the same way, so it just feels like out of place, you know?
Yeah, it's
like there's a way they could have had it be sort of like this international thing. It's like bizarrely not a very international movie,
no,
but
and it's just played for comedy too. Honestly, that it's just like, isn't it funny that these French guys are like
all
super
named
hardcore
Jean?
and all named Jean, super hardcore and like really like coffee.
Sure.
Some of the running gags in this movie are like, what
Yeah.
Who was this funny to ever?
I don't know.
Why is this a joke you're revisiting? They always are talking
Over and
about
over.
coffee. Okay, cool. Anyway, a lot of the production crew gets ported over from Independence Day, which is like just wrapping up production when they start working on this movie.
Sure.
So, it's the same composer, David Arnold, like I mentioned. Just a real quick, plug for him. He's very prolific. Works on tons of Emmerich movies. He worked on 5 James Bond scores. He did the score for the Sherlock TV show, which won him an Emmy.
No slouch.
People seem to like the score to this movie. I don't agree. I'm not a fan.
I also don't agree.
I don't think it's a good score. The twinkly magical child's like kids movie kind of sound to it. I don't really understand.
I thought frequently that the score is like too playful for the movie they're making.
Yes.
And I do wonder how much of that is specifically based on, and I don't know how he would know this necessarily. I don't know how what the relationship was. I know he works with Roland Emmerich plenty, so like they might have a different relationship working on stuff together than you might expect, but like a lot of it does feel wrong when they are specifically trying to be funny. And that often is where I was sort of like, what is the score doing right now? This feels like bizarrely out of place. So I don't know if that's like a big factor in it, given that this guy's clearly talented.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't really hit for me either. I'm glad you said that, because I obviously didn't know how like people felt about it, but I did not enjoy it most of the time. Well, when I didn't enjoy it, I really didn't enjoy it, but it's not like I hated it at all.
There's some good sweeping orchestral things when it's sort of like the majesty of Godzilla type stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I do think are effectively done.
Yeah.
But it's like everything else. Like when it's not music that's supposed to make you feel in awe of Godzilla.
That's a great distinction.
Like everything else other than that doesn't work. But that stuff, when it's supposed to be like, look at this creature, that music is usually pretty effectively done, I think.
Yeah, I think that stuff is good. I am also like neutral on any of the sort of like neutral stuff, but I hate the comedy and playfulness parts.
Yeah, it's bad.
I just don't think it works.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the comedy in general just doesn't work in this movie.
Right.
The effects were another Emmerich guy who just worked with him on Independence Day, Volker Engel. He won an Academy. He ends up, I think, while this movie's in production, wins an Academy Award for his effects on Independence Day.
Makes a lot of sense.
He does effects on 2012 and Hugo and White House Down as well.
Oh, he was on 2012? Ooh.
Yeah. So he knows how to do destruction and disaster. Yeah. This is when my notes get a little wonky, because normally we would have a section where we talk about like the creatures and the Godzilla design.
Sure.
But the thing that's a little bit weird about this movie is that the Godzilla design and their decisions for why they make Godzilla look like he does in this movie are so instrumental into how this movie is able to get made, because this is essentially what designing Godzilla to look like this fucking crazy is how they're able to kind of make a movie that Toho doesn't have their hands in, weirdly enough. I think the story is actually really interesting, but in order to tell the story, I kind of have to get into the design. So I think, there will be conversations about the technical stuff in how they actually film Godzilla, and I think we can talk about this Godzilla as a character like we normally do then, but I think how they go about designing this, I'm going to talk about this right now because it's sort of part of the production story.
Okay.
If that doesn't feel too wildly off the rails. Not that we're not already off the rails as it is.
The only thing I want to, and I don't even have to tell you this on the podcast, but I want to, because I think people appreciate it. When I think about like Roland Emmerich, sometimes I think about the conversation that like you and I had one time where we were talking about like James Cameron or something. I think it was like right when The Way of Water like announced or came out or something like that. And like, not comparable when it comes to filmmaking, but I remember you specifically said something about like, James Cameron's not hurting anybody with his little water movie. Let him make his little water movie. And I feel like that sometimes with Roland Emmerich. And then I found out, Derek, that not only was James Cameron approached to potentially work on Godzilla movie, the two of them together were supposed to make a Fantastic Voyage remake and could not get along.
I didn't know that.
Yes. They were supposed to make a Fantastic Voyage remake and could not. Like, I don't think they like each other. They could not make it happen.
But I would die to see that movie.
Right?
A Roland Emmerich, James Cameron Fantastic Voyage movie?
Yeah. It's one of the
like,
unrealized Roland Emmerich projects.
I like, that is so intensely my shit in such a specific way that it's kind of breaking my brain a little bit.
But I think it makes so much sense when you realize they couldn't work together, because I think both of them just I think they're too much, like they do their thing too much, right? So like Roland Emmerich felt like James Cameron was too involved, and James Cameron thought it was ridiculous that Roland Emmerich like exerted so much control. Like they just could not work together, which is so funny to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my last Roland Emmerich thing, but I felt like you'd appreciate it, and there were probably other people who would too.
Doug, that's not going to be your last Roland Emmerich thing on this episode. Are you
No,
kidding
but
me?
I mean like just like outside of the context of Godzilla.
Sure. Okay.
Unrelated to anything.
Yeah. So that's fucking wild though. I'm so glad you told me that. So this Godzilla design, obviously it's a big departure. So why is this so important? So they get visual effects and production designer Patrick Tatopoulos. Recognize the last name? Ho.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter, but when I learned that, I was like, okay.
Speaking of running gags that aren't funny, I can't pronounce Tatopoulos. Tatopoulos?
Oh no, aren't Greek names so long and confusing?
Yeah, wasn't funny the first time, wasn't funny the 17th time that they made that same joke.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had been working with them on the designs for Independence Day and Stargate. So they get him again to work on, he also did a lot of designs for Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula movie as well. No stranger to like bizarre designs in movies, right?
Yeah.
So they tap him to create their new Godzilla direction. They give him the direction that it had to be scary and it had to be huge. It could not be a dinosaur. Emmerich told him to, quote, go crazy with it and not be a slave to the original design. This would be a sleek and agile animal, Godzilla after fitness training. So they come to him with the idea that like they don't want a big Godzilla. They want a sleek, fast Godzilla.
Okay.
And not only that, Doug, not only that.
I think I know what you're going to tell me next.
What they're really talking around is that they want a Godzilla who fucks. They want a Godzilla with, and I quote, sex appeal.
I think they want a Godzilla people want to fuck. Is what it sounds like.
Let's read some horny quotes from Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin in a 1998 interview with The Morning Call.
I can't wait.
I'm just going to read you these quotes straight away.
Great.
Devlin says, our Godzilla has calves and shoulders that are almost human. We wanted his muscles to bulge when his feet hit the ground, his neck to flex, and his jowls to shake. Mm-hmm. Emmerich said, I wanted Godzilla very slim and muscular, sexy even. When his tail swishes along buildings, it's almost sensual. I wanted him to be very reptilian. We looked at dozens of documentaries about lizards, and the thing we noticed was that the arms and legs of lizards are very buff. And then the uncredited author of that Morning Call article itself says, imagine the love child of a T-Rex and the Aliens monster with a smidgen of Fabio thrown in.
What the fuck are they talking about?
Lastly, I will send you this concept art that, based on that information, Patrick Tatopoulos drew. That's this concept art.
Oh, I've seen the first one. I have not seen the second one. What? I don't think I've seen the second one. Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. Is there like something Roland Emmerich being a queer man? Is there something there?
No, here's the thing, Derek. I think there are plenty of gay people, plenty of gay men who already are like, Godzilla fucks, dude. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
But here's the thing. I think what you're asking is like, is there something about Roland Emmerich's perspective as like a queer man that is making its way into this design? And I would argue that Roland Emmerich's disconnection with often people's sort of like queer experience, seemingly, right? Because I did say he loves some heterosexuality. I don't think he's making like a queer appealing Godzilla in the way that you and I would look at a Godzilla and be like, hell yeah. And that straight people would look at us and be like, I don't get what the fuck they're talking about. I think the fact that we don't get what the fuck Roland Emmerich is talking about is exactly what I'm talking about when I say he loves heterosexuality.
No, that's a good point.
They tried to make a very like conventionally human, attractive Godzilla. And that is not what is attractive about Godzilla to so many people. We've talked about with other people too, not even just us, about what appeals in a Godzilla design. And it's not even just like monster fuckers, but like there are specific shapes and specific designs with Godzilla that I think appeal to people. And one of those things, if you are going to get into the sort of like even just tangential monster fucker realm, is like Godzilla has hips and tits. You know what I mean? Like, and this is the opposite of that. Like they tried to make a very human, sleek, conventionally attractive, human shaped Godzilla. And I think you couldn't possibly do something straighter than that.
They still put him. No, I think that's a really good point, and I think we didn't even describe the concept art. If you haven't seen this before, that sleek Godzilla is in like kind of traditionally feminine pinup poses in a way. The way that his body is turned and the way that his like chest is like is sort of protruding out, while you see sort of the curve of his back and hips in one of them, and then the one where he's swimming with the submarine. Like I've absolutely seen like actual like women pinup poses in the sort of pose that almost looks like his arm is like covering up bare breasts. You could look at it like that, and the way that his sort of leg is, or the way that his back is arched and his legs are sort of like showing off his thighs and everything. Like it's a very feminine cover or feminine pinup cover type of pose, which I think you're right. I think it speaks to like Godzilla. I think is often I think we talked about it before. It has like, it sort of interestingly has both feminine and masculine features and like kind of protrudes both of that energy depending on how you want to look at it. And this Godzilla, which is sort of like,
there's an androgynous sort of bi-gendered appeal to Godzilla often.
Right. And this one is like very traditionally like comic book, like 90s comic book woman kind of body type, I feel like. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I think if you, and obviously this isn't like entirely universal, but if you are making a Godzilla for the gay male gaze, I think it already exists several times over. I think if you were trying to make a Godzilla for the straight male gaze, you end up with 98.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm not even just saying like straight men wanting to fuck Godzilla. I'm talking like male gaze in the sense that like women look like characters that straight men want to fuck, and male characters look like what straight men want to be, right? So the fact that this one has like slender and has rippling muscles and sometimes has these sort of like, it's a different kind of like masculine feminine relationship.
That's
so
fascinating.
Yeah. I told you, Roland Emmerich, heterosexuality.
Yeah, no.
Look, he's gay, and I'm not invalidating that.
Yeah, you clarify that for me though, because I mean, and there are people I've absolutely seen Rule 34 art of this Godzilla.
No doubt.
I'm not surprised, and like you know what, they're literally asking for it. So go if you fucking find this
right there.
Right, if you find this Godzilla sexy, like you've got
to you.
Plenty of fodder for that. I was just like, I want whenever I like when I was reading about it. The cover, the concept art makes it very clear what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I will say though, when you watch the movie, I'm like putting myself on blast. Resident monster fucker, resident scaly. I've looked at my share of like art with reptilian characters that are meant to be sexy.
Sure.
I watched this Godzilla movie and I kind of don't see it. I don't see it. There's like one bit where he's like coming out of the ground and they do kind of show off like his pecs and his like arm muscles. And I'm like, I see it there. I see it. It's not for me, but I see it there. But most of the time, the way they're describing him, versus the way he's in concept art versus the way he's on screen, it doesn't feel like the way that he's executed on screen is portraying the sexiness that it seems like they were trying to implement in the way that they describe it and the way that they draw him in the concept art.
No, because I think that the concept art kind of gives this like almost like you would expect it to move in sort of like a much more reptilian sultry way than it actually does, and part of that's probably just limitations of what they were capable of doing, but part of it is how they actually manifest its movement on screen in ways that they could control. So I think the art does kind of sell a little bit more of what you and I are kind of trying to figure out, but like it's still a cool monster design. I don't know if like we're getting into that later, but like it's not like it's a like hideous thing. So like I get people who like it, but it's just it's sort of a bizarre direction for Godzilla, and not just because it doesn't look like Godzilla, but because it sort of philosophically feels in some ways pretty different.
Yeah. We'll have a section where we talk about our thoughts with the tech, because there's some technical stuff I want to get into with it anyway, because I have opinions about this Godzilla too. But this part of the story, this as the story of the production. One quote that I like that comes from Totopoulos about the design is he says, "If you're going to try to make a Rembrandt painting better, you're going to fail. If you forget his technique and you try your own, you have a chance to succeed." So his approach, or at least his rationalization or justification, is that the original one was so iconic, to be respectful to the original version of it, really, rather than try to imitate it, you should try to just go in such a wildly different direction that's your own, that actually is in turn respectful of the original one. I think that that's maybe a self-justification after the movie is made, is probably where that's coming from.
Right, because that feels like one of those things that like I could find myself agreeing with out of context, but then when you realize how it's practically being applied, it's like, oh no, actually I think you're so full of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But anyway, the reason that I think this was important to talk about with the production of it rather than its own design section is how they come to Toho with this wild design that Totopoulos comes up with. They make a model of this Godzilla design based on that concept art that Totopoulos comes up with. They bring it to Toho draped in cloth for a dramatic reveal.
Okay.
They unveil it to Toho, and allegedly, as the story goes, there's about 2 minutes of silence that falls into the room. The Toho execs just say, "It's so different that we don't want to comment on it. Can you come back tomorrow?" They leave. They come back the next day, and they're greeted with, "We love your idea. Go for it."
Wait a second.
So here's the thing. What people have argued, or theorized, and this is based on a quote that I'll give you in a second.
Okay.
The theory is that Emmerich and Devlin knew that that they would be working under Toho, and the Toho would be micromanaging their big IP that they have, right? They knew that when they signed on, we're doing something with a licensed property, and if we want to go our own direction, we're going to have this other studio in another country that's going to give us all kinds of notes that we don't want to get. So what people theorize is that this really was just kind of a power play, to kind of avoid Toho micromanaging. The idea being that if they come in with a design that is so wildly not Godzilla, that is so completely over the top, like different than anything they've ever done, there would be so many notes that they would have to give on it that they would basically be asking them to start from scratch. And at this point, the movie has been in development for like 5 years, bouncing from different directors, people not taking it on. They finally got directors that are at the phase where they're making models of it and the studio is like okaying it and the movie's a go. If they're to just be like, "We don't like it, start over," there's a high possibility that the movie just doesn't happen because everyone's just going to quit and be mad about it. So they basically take the L and are sort of like, I mean, sure. And that is supported by a 1998 article in Los Angeles Times where Shogo Tomiyama, producer of Godzilla during the Heisei era, said it was so different, we realized we couldn't make small adjustments. That left the major question of whether to approve it or not. And they just decided they just should approve it and just, again, take the L, let them make the movie, because at least a Godzilla movie gets made.
There are sort of like a couple ways. There's like a couple things that could be sort of true about that. And it sounds like at the very least, the receiving end on Toho's part is that part is true, right? Like they saw it, they realized that they could not just make adjustments. They would have to scratch the whole thing, and had to make a decision on that. And that I can understand, and I can't really hold against anyone.
Yeah.
But if on the delivering side, if that was a power play, if that was like a conscious thing that somebody did, or somebody figured like, this is how we can sort of like get control and sort of push them out of their understandable role, that sucks so hard. That sucks, and to me feels like where the movie should have been called. Like they should have stopped at that point, because at that point you're not doing things for any of the reasons that you would want someone to be doing things.
Well, and if you think about it, it would be kind of a win-win for them, because they didn't really seem to want to do the movie very much anyway. And it's sort of like they go in, either they go in and Toho's like, you know what, fine, do your own thing, and they get all the power to do whatever they wanted, or Toho's like, we don't like it, and they're like, okay, we quit. We didn't really want to do this anyway. That's just a sign that we shouldn't do it, and then move on to the next project that they're going to be offered. Because again, by this point, Independence Day has been released, I think by this point in the timeline, is a huge hit, is about to be a huge hit in Japan. So they're probably like,
so Toho letting them go would feel like truly like
crazy,
catastrophic.
Yeah, like it would be like they have to let these guys make their movie, and they're probably like, we could get any movie we fucking want after Independence Day. So
God,
like, let us do whatever the hell we want, you know?
Yeah.
I know that's all speculation, but I think that the signs point in that direction. That I think that
at the very least, Toho probably, or people on the Toho side probably believed that was the case.
I think so. Yeah. This is just a funny story. Well, again, not actually funny because it's kind of sad because it's another thing that involves death. Tomoyuki Tanaka, original Godzilla producer, co-creator, was on his deathbed at the time, so he wasn't in that Toho meeting. And this is going to be an important thing, but like this Godzilla design is like top secret for a very long time, even into marketing. That includes Toho not being allowed to even take pictures outside of the Toho studio. So they go to Tanaka, who's on his deathbed at the time, aren't able to show him pictures of this Godzilla. They just have to describe it to him. So Tomiyama apparently says that he had a lot of trouble figuring out exactly how to describe this like bonkers design. Yeah. And the way he's described it was, it's similar to Carl Lewis with long legs and it runs fast. Lewis is a famous Olympic track and field athlete from the 90s.
Okay, that does make some sense.
I just think it's kind of sad, honestly, because it's just like, because you can tell, I mean, reading between the lines, but it's like, I feel like you can tell they're all kind of like, what have we done?
Yeah.
What did we do, guys?
Yeah. It really is. It's sad because, like I said earlier, all the pieces are right, and you can't like blame anybody. It's not like you could sit there and say like the mistake you made was signing these people and you should have known it. Like, no, how would anybody have known,
Right. The two main reasons I wanted to bring up the design when I did is like, that's becomes, again, kind of an anchor in Emmerich and Devlin being able to do whatever the fuck they want without Toho's involvement, because once they've sort of gotten the leverage on the design, Toho just kind of has to be hands off, because it's like, I guess we have to trust you on everything. You're the Independence Day guys, So they just give them free reign to do whatever. And then the other part is that this design is such an important anchor in the way that they market the movie, because so much of the publicity around this movie is, you have to see the movie to know what Godzilla is like. You're not going to believe what this Godzilla looks like, and we're not going to show you. There's no trailers show him, no posters show him. Like the famous Godzilla poster for this movie is just his foot. And I'll send you actually there's a Japanese version of the poster. It's the same way, but I actually think the Japanese version like fucks even harder.
Oh. Ooh! Oh! Whoa! Yeah!
Because it's Godzilla's foot at an angle with the Statue of Liberty and like lightning striking.
Yeah, it's like a cool stepping on the platform of the statue. That's really cool.
And also, every marketing image, the foot is like dwarfing buildings and people, so it makes it seem like this Godzilla is also going to be gigantic too, right? But here's the thing: because they made that such an anchor in their marketing of sort of like, this Godzilla design is fucking crazy, you guys. You have to see the movie to see it. We're never going to show you anything. That means that trailers can't show it, commercials can't show it, merchandise can't show it. So they're getting all of this merchandise and tie-ins developed, right? A ridiculous amount of merchandise. Right. But then they're sort of like, hey, merchandisers, sorry, I know you're making this. It literally can't hit stores until after the movie comes out, because it's such a big secret what this Godzilla's design is. And then ends up fucking them over because they can't sell toys ahead of the movie, or any merchandise. That counts cups and t-shirts and everything. You can't sell it ahead of the movie.
Would have more, which typically more likely people will buy, because they don't know how to evaluate the movie yet. So they're just buying it based on characters and franchise recognition and stuff like that. So you can sell a bunch of Toy Story merchandise before you find out that Toy Story 5 is hot garbage, Like,
right. Right. And they're making a ton of it too. I just sent you the Zilla page that just says a list of toys, and it's just like the amount of merchandise they made for this movie is wild anyway. And then to think that they literally couldn't release any of this stuff until after it came out. And of course it's going to fuck them over, because the movie comes out and people hate it. It doesn't even matter how well it does in the box office. If people don't like the movie, they're not going to buy the merchandise for it, which means that there's this intense surplus of merchandise after the movie comes out. It ends up like it's cited as fucking over Trendmasters, which is a toy company that made a bunch of toys during the Heisei era that people love. It closed in 2002. A lot of people cite this movie as being kind of like the beginning of the end for them.
That's rough. Yeah.
So there's bad blood from merchandisers. There's a ridiculous amount of like money spent on advertising to the point that I think it's kind of a joke at a certain point at how many fucking ads there are for this Godzilla movie that don't show Godzilla in it.
Yeah.
There was a point like in the last 2 weeks, they spent $50 million on a final ad push that included a $2 million trailer broadcast during the Seinfeld finale, which I watched live, by the way. So I saw that Godzilla trailer live.
Did too, yeah.
Yeah. But again, all of them had to be like rapid and short because they cut around the fucking monster. And so I think that kind of became a thing in the cultural consciousness of sort of like, can we stop with seeing fucking commercials for this goddamn Godzilla movie? I don't even know what he looks like, you know?
Yeah.
So that creates bad blood. Again, the merchandise thing creates bad blood. The other thing that creates bad blood in the press is that they also how to end up fucking over movie theaters, because movie studios see like how hype this is. So they actually move a lot of movies off of direct competition with Godzilla.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
On opening day. So Godzilla is pretty much the only thing that opens that weekend that is in sort of that sort of action blockbuster realm, right? There's no competition. But here's the thing. It's a lot more complicated than this, but the bare bones of it is that Sony makes theaters pay back 80 to 90% of Godzilla's grosses, which is a lot higher than movie theaters typically paying back 60%. Mm-hmm. So they up the rate that movie theaters have to pay back to them for screening their movies, but they also were opting to open it in a record number of screens, which basically means that and because there's no competition with other movies, theaters couldn't not show this movie because it was like the only big blockbuster showing, and they were being asked to show it on like tons of screens. But even if it sold amazingly well, because of the high rate they'd have to pay back from its gross, they would either break even or be at a loss, even if the movie fucking did gangbusters. So movie theaters were also pissed at them. The industry was pissed at them. Merchandisers were pissed at them. The general public were pretty annoyed at them, which means that there is just this like, hostile press coverage about all of that if you're insular in the film community,
yeah.
Which means people are going to kind of be going into it,
already sour.
And then for Godzilla fans, there's all these interviews that are all focused on like, it's not campy. It's not a farce. It's not cheesy. It's a serious take, you guys. It is so serious. You guys, this is the most serious movie you'll have ever seen about Godzilla in your life, which of course is going to piss off Godzilla fans who love the movies and don't think that they're cheesy. It's also probably also just going to be annoying to anyone reading about the movie. It's like, okay, like the lady doth protest too much here. Like, are you sure it's that serious? Like, what is your deal here? Yeah. So by the time the movie fucking comes out, I think there's already bad blood everywhere. And so of course no one's going to be going into it with like very high expectations anyway. So when the movie, it does actually do pretty well in the box office. I think because it's a curiosity. It's the only fucking movie opening that weekend.
I was going to say,
and people are probably, people are kind of probably sick of hearing it. Sort of like, well, I guess I might as well see the goddamn movie. At the time, it was the third highest growing opening weekend box office gross in history. It remained the number one movie for 2 consecutive weeks. It made $400 million worldwide, which was double its budget ultimately. The 7th highest grossing movie of the year, earned more than the entire Heisei series added together and then tripled. Like, this movie made an insane amount of money.
Sure.
But because it was still ended up being higher than they initially budgeted, and because it had virtually no real competition, and because it was like there was already so much like kind of this hostile press coverage that was like waiting for it to fail anyway, like it needed to do like Avengers Endgame level well for Sony executives to consider it a success, because it would have to overcome reviews. It would have to overcome the general general audience view. It would have to make up for how over budget they went. Cause like they basically were planning for this movie to be bigger than any movie has ever been by the end. And so even though they were
probably expecting like Jurassic Park numbers.
Exactly. Well, look at the fucking movie. It's another Jurassic Park movie, Mm-hmm. And so, because of all that, the movie, even though the movie's a success, it's not viewed that way by anyone. It's not viewed that way by Sony executives. Critics tear it apart. Audiences tear it apart. Godzilla fans tear it apart. It becomes having like one of the worst reputations of any movie that's made in that whole decade. And I think still goes down even outside of Godzilla fandom, which Godzilla fandom fucking despises this movie generally.
Sure.
it also, I think, has just a uniquely bad reputation in Hollywood because it's so representative of bloated blockbuster budgets fucking over everyone else in the industry, all for just sort of like what most people consider just kind of generic, like blockbuster trash.
Yeah.
You know?
The monster was Hollywood all along.
Right. And it's funny because it's like you could say that about many movies that still continue to be made now. You know, it's still the same fucking problems over and over again that keep happening.
Yep.
They didn't learn their lesson from this movie, you know?
No.
Which is just so wild. But all of that ends up meaning that this is such a hard movie to talk about. Because like even when I was doing research for this movie, the books that I cite all the time that I'm gonna, you know, we'll put in the show description as always do, like those books usually, even when they're critical of movies, will at least have sections of like, here's the historical context, here's the film history point of view that is like relatively unbiased. Not for this fucking movie, man. You open up the chapter for it, it's like, hey, we're going to talk about the movie that sucks now. Doesn't the movie suck? I hate this movie. Don't you hate this movie? Everyone hates this movie. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I would like to know about the actual like information though. Like, just it's so hard to talk about this movie or read about this movie without having to wade through layers and layers and layers of like the reputation that this movie has for the place that it occupies both with Godzilla and with Hollywood.
Sure. Well, and one thing I will say, because all that makes total sense to me, I'm like not surprised by any of the sort of groups of folks, which is pretty much all groups of folks, who have like beef with this movie. But one thing I will say is like a lot of people were excited for us to talk about this movie for various reasons, but not all of them were excited for us to talk about this movie because everyone hates this movie. Some people were excited for us to talk about this movie because it's the first Godzilla movie they saw and therefore have like an affinity for it. I think
it has a fan base. Right. It totally does.
In a similar way to like, again, very different movie, very different circumstances, but some things similarly, like The Phantom Menace, right? Like, I think a lot of people who grew up with that movie and didn't have a voice at the time now have a voice. And so there are people who are able to talk about it or are trying at least to talk about it in ways that aren't just sort of like, hey, this is the one that sucks, right? Everyone, let's talk about how this one sucks. Right. So hopefully people are finding their space if they're the ones who want to be the ones who talk about it not like that. And I do think we are some of those people. Unfortunately, we have made a space for ourselves to kind of talk about this movie, you know, the way that we do. It does make it tough, though, because if ultimately you and I don't like this movie, it's hard to do that in a landscape where everyone's like, well, yeah, obviously everyone hates that movie. Because I don't think we tend to ride those waves, you know?
Yeah. Well, we didn't talk about it at the top, but like, we both saw this movie during that time when all this is going on. Yep. We were both,
I remember marketing big time.
We were both like preteens when this movie came out, right?
I think we were like 9 and 10 years old.
Yeah. So like, you know, we were probably unaware of the industry conversation, but we were very aware that this movie was happening. Yeah. And, you know, I remember, I don't think that I saw it in theaters. I feel like I would have, but I don't have a specific memory of seeing it. So that probably means that I didn't, but I did. I still, on my shelf right now, I have the original VHS, and then years later got the DVD for it.
Sure.
I've seen it 100 times. I've seen it. When my sister was very, very young when it came out, and this was her like, you know, child that watches a movie over and over again. Oh, this was the movie for her. She watches the movie over and over again. My whole family, like, I think we talked about it in our introduction episode. Like, I think that like we watched it, recognized that like this movie is kind of weird. Isn't really that good. Don't really understand. But it's like endlessly watchable. It is so like Roland Emmerich knows how to make a fun, stupid fucking movie. This is a fun, stupid fucking movie. It's so easy to throw on and watch. And there are enough funny, weird bits about it that you can latch on to that like it's easy to watch over and over again. So I have a real nostalgia for this movie, even having spent my entire life recognizing that it's pretty bad. It's not a good movie, but I'm never upset if I have to throw it on and watch it, and I have a great time when it's on. And it's 1000% nostalgia, but it also kind of speaks to like the weird space that it occupies as being a fun, stupid fucking movie, you know?
Right. Well, and I do think it's worth noting for folks who might know of things Roland Emmerich does, but don't pay attention to the things he says. Like, he doesn't care if people think his movies are bad. Like, it's not what he's doing. Like, his whole thing is like, one, he just makes movies he wants to make, but two, he's making movies that are like you just described, endlessly watchable, things that you can just put on and sort of enjoy with your snacks. Like, he doesn't care if you don't think his movies are good. And I think some of that is reflected here. I also think, there's a whole conversation, like I said at the top, about Godzilla movie and Roland Emmerich movie. So it makes perfect sense that there are plenty of people who watched it over and over and over, continue to watch it over and over and over, because that is what this guy does.
Yeah. Do you remember when you watched it originally the first time?
I don't have a distinct memory of watching it. I know I didn't see it in the movie theater, and I think I probably would have seen it probably like the year after.
Sure.
I do think it was probably a movie that we like rented or something, which would have been like a rare... Is this a PG-13 movie?
Probably so. It
would have been like one of the rare... If it were a PG-13 movie, one of the very rare PG-13 movies I would have been allowed to watch. And if that were the case, it would have just solely been on the reputation of Godzilla and the sort of everything you talked about, like the hype of sort of like it being the Godzilla movie that that America made.
Yeah.
But the difference between our experiences is I watched it probably that next year, and I remember things about it. There were certain shots as I'm watching it now that I'm like, oh shit, that's right, I remember that. Yeah. But then I don't think I ever watched it again. So like, I don't think I ever revisited it until now.
Yeah.
And it feels very different now than probably what I remember it being. But it's not like my relationship with it ended because we watched the animated series when we could catch it, So like, then same. I have like a connection to it because they continued to make stuff in this world.
Yeah, no, you're right. I watched the animated series too. And I do think a big selling point for this movie was the Emmerich of it all, it being the guy who did Independence Day, and we all fucking loved Independence Day.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, you hadn't seen it, right? But my family fucking loved Independence Day. I fucking love Independence Day. I still watch, I watched that movie every couple of years,
endlessly watchable. That movie is so watchable.
Yeah, I think it's way better than this one, but
yes.
it does have the watchability. But I think like the watchability factor of Godzilla, you can see it in movies like Independence Day,
Yeah.
We talked about the design of Godzilla and how it was a Godzilla that Roland Emmerich would want the straight version of himself to fuck.
Yeah.
But let's actually talk about what we think of this Godzilla as a design, as a character, as a technical effect.
Sure. Yes.
Yes. So a few things about it. Officially, I think the name is Toragoji, which comes from the Japanese name for TriStar, which is Torai Suta. So that was the full official name, but other people have called it like Emagoji for Emmerich Goji or Amerigoji, which obviously went out of fashion when the 2014 Monsterverse started,
Sure. I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've seen Zilla used very frequently as a nickname for this.
Toragoji, I guess, is the name of this, like the sort of suit design.
Okay.
Suit design in quotes, but.
Oh, but the character itself has its own nickname in the way that a lot of the ones we've talked about wouldn't have their own nickname. So like using Wikizilla as an example, there's like a page for the character Godzilla, and then there's a clarification for what the suit used for that Godzilla is.
Yeah.
Got it.
Currently, as of it's writing, 2 separate pages, but one is marked for deletion because I think they're trying to merge them together across them. But I'm like, for me, my purposes, I've actually loved having them be separated because it makes it so easy for you to research. So we're like, all right, check this page. Here's my design notes from this one. Check this page. Here's my character notes for this one. Once they merge them, I'm like, this might be a little bit harder for me to navigate. So hopefully that doesn't happen until after this podcast is over.
Okay, that makes sense.
But anyway, Zilla is sort of his name, and that's sort of how, and also it's meant to be kind of like, there's no God in this Godzilla. He's just Zilla because he's just a dinosaur. Like that's literally, really that's like the reason.
That's really funny.
So,
petty, but funny.
Yeah, you will definitely hear this Godzilla referred to as Zilla in a lot of spaces. And in Godzilla, the series, it's Zilla Jr., I think is what people refer to it as because it's, Yeah, so there is a suit actor for this because there are, I think people, the sort of misconception I think about this movie is that like it's 100% CGI, and that's extremely not true. I do think that there was more for both Godzilla and the baby Godzillas. I think there was more suit and animatronic stuff that was shot that ended up getting thrown out and replaced with CGI. So that part is true. I think there is predominantly CGI stuff in this movie, but I think there is more suit and animatronic and practical stuff than you would expect there to be. Especially anytime there's a close up of Godzilla's Godzilla's head. It's an animatronic. And in a lot of cases, if it's Godzilla, just like, you know, if you're seeing him from just like the top down, or if he's just like sitting there or something, like he's going to be a suit actor. It's the CGI stuff is when he's like climbing or running or whatever, something that'll be harder for a suit actor to pull off. Kirk Carley is the prominent suit actor for Godzilla in this movie. He also did the motion reference for the CGI. He is uncredited in this movie, which is a fucking
that's
travesty.
Rude as fuck.
Well, I think that speaks to Hollywood, the way that they treat suitmation.
Yeah,
in general,
my
right?
God.
Like they just are fucking like, you're not a real fucking
But also
actor.
imagine like not, I know it's different, but like actually it's not that different. Imagine not crediting Andy Serkis for one of his performances. Like it's obviously not an Andy Serkis performance, but like that's so weird. Like he's performing that character, you know?
I know. I think it's less likely
bizarre.
to happen nowadays, but
so.
yeah, for sure.
Especially now that like the Planet of the Apes movies are just like actual Hollywood casts and all of them are doing performance capture.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, he's living the dream as a suit actor. You know, one of the sort of probably relative few who are in America, right? And who are American. He portrays werewolves in the Underworld franchise.
Oh, I really gotta see those. I hear such like fun things about those.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one.
People like who love those movies really love those movies.
Well, and a lot of the werewolf designs are hot.
There you go.
Which is far and few between sometimes in werewolf movies. And werewolf movies are often really bad. So anytime you have one that's like reasonably okay, it's sort of like, we have a winner. He also was the Queen Rat in the Cabinet of Curiosities show, which I have not seen, but I know a lot of people really like that. The
Is that
Guillermo
like a
del
TV
Toro
show remake of the Cabinet of Caligari or whatever?
It's no. It's the Guillermo del Toro anthology show that he did for Netflix a year or two ago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
and there's like a rat monster in that show. And
okay,
he's in the suit for the rat
I
monster.
I didn't know they did that, but I do know about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna send you a funny picture.
Yeah?
You probably have seen it because I've posted it before, but it's my favorite photo from behind the scenes movie of the Zilla suit. Hunched over, but like he doesn't have the feet on, so it's just you see the socks and sneakers underneath it. So he's just like taking a squat and sneaks.
Amazing.
I love it.
Very
There's just a funny story where he met Haruo Nakajima once, you know, the Showa actor for Godzilla, or the Showa Godzilla actor. Mm-hmm. And there's like a video of him where he's sort of like telling Nakajima like, yeah, I know the movie was bad. I was just doing my job. And he say that he like was a Godzilla fan before, like he was a big fan of Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, aka Godzilla versus Hedorah, and Nakajima did inspire him to be a monster suit actor, which he
that's really cool though. Yeah. So then this was like a dream job for this guy,
for sure. I mean, that's the thing.
Rules.
It's like,
and makes it even worse that he's not credited.
I know, seriously, you know. I mean, and I'm kind of like, if you asked me to be Godzilla in anything, it could be the worst movie ever made, and I would do it.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
In a heartbeat.
Right.
I don't give a shit. I'd fucking do it just to be a Godzilla in a movie.
Yeah.
You know, so more power to him. He does great. Just some interesting things about it. So Godzilla, CGI Godzilla, that model has 4 fingers. The animatronic also has 4 fingers, and the design maquette has 4 fingers. I think because it's a man in a suit and he has hands in the gloves, the actual suit does have a 5th finger there. He has 5 fingers in the suit. I don't know if you ever see it in the movie because I think they either cut around that footage so much that you never see it, or they maybe digitally change it. But it's just interesting if you look at pictures of him in the suit, like in that picture, he has 5 fingers, but the actual Godzilla design only has 4, which is interesting.
That's really weird because it's like not hard to make a 4-fingered glove.
I know. Isn't it weird? And I'm like, look at the Toho Godzilla movies had like done that many times and fine.
Like literally sitting really here weird. Staring at my hands, like imagining gloves that would work.
Not hard.
You know?
It's not hard. Like, okay.
Very strange.
I don't know.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had 3-fingered gloves.
Dude, that's so right. Yeah. Whatever.
Strange.
What do you think of this? What do you personally think of this Godzilla design?
Yeah, okay. It is weird because it is both a Godzilla design and a monster design, right? So like my
Right,
general overall thoughts, which I kind of already said, is like it's not a terrible monster design. It's a cool monster design in many ways. I think even as a monster design, there are things I don't love about it, but generally speaking, it's a cool monster design.
Yeah.
As a Godzilla design, I'm not super into it, not just because it's different, but because of the things I like about specific Godzilla designs are really just not present here.
Yeah.
I think its head is super fucking cool. Like,
I love it.
I think the best part of this design is its head and its face. I know it's like a vast departure from Godzillas we'd seen, but I do think you could make a cool Godzilla design, a more conventional or more Godzilla-y design with this head, and I would be fine with it, you know?
I think that if you watch, you know, and spoiler, we are going to do a Patreon episode on the Godzilla the series animated follow-up to this, planning for that next month. I do think if you watch that, I think what they're able to do with this Godzilla design in animation, I think supports your point, because once they, you know, in animation, they can do a little more facial expressions on him and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it looks really good in that cartoon. I think that they make this design look fucking awesome in that cartoon.
Right. And as a kid, I certainly thought it was cool. You know what I mean? So I think, like I said, as a monster, it's a cool design. I think what I don't like about it, and this applies both to the Godzilla piece and just the monster piece, I don't mind a Godzilla that is a little bit more dinosaur-like. I mean, Godzillasaurus is much more dinosaur-like and kind of has a T-Rex vibe to it. I don't hate that they reference like an Allosaurus when they're talking about this thing. But its posture's like too extreme to the point where it's really not doing like an Allosaurus thing. I mean, its arms are often like lower than its hips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's only really able to achieve that based on like its waist down proportions, which I just don't really like very much. I think the way that it's designed to be like sleek in the back often makes it like just kind of look a little weird to me. Like it does kind of have like a naked dude vibe sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because its hips aren't wide in the way that you just kind of expect something that stands like it does or a Godzilla monster to have.
Right.
Its legs are very much like underneath it, which I think is maybe the wrong way to have gone about it. I know there's a little bit of space there, but I don't know. There's something about the way that its waist down proportions are that I just don't like. But easy thing to fix. They could have easily adjusted. And it sounds like the animated one, which I haven't revisited in a while, probably figures that out.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's just the proportions I feel look better. And again, they're able to make it move however they want it to. So, you know. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think that the body is kind of the problem. The head's cool, but the body is kind of the problem. I don't mean, I'm never going to really be into like a super slender Godzilla anyway.
Right.
But I do agree with you as a standalone creature design, independent of Godzilla, which you just kind of the movie is truly a remake of Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, to be honest, like in the way that the story is and the way that Godzilla is portrayed and kind of his design a little bit, because that monster was also very sleek and had a long face and stuff. So I think from that regard, I think it's a cool sort of update of like just a reptilian monster. What if an iguana was a kaiju? Cool.
Well, it's like a cool aquatic dragon design. If you just told me this was like an aquatic dragon, I'd be like, wow, that's a cool take on like an aquatic dragon, you know?
Yeah. Right.
I will say it's also a little bit tough in the movie because I know that the marketing really didn't want to show off the design. Like that was supposed to be a big surprise, but the movie itself also doesn't really do an amazing job, I think, of showing off the design in its entirety. Like there are very few, if any, like proper wide shots of Godzilla. The one that I remember distinctly is where it's sort of like hugged up against the Empire State Building and just like roaring into the sky. Like that's a really good look. It's sort of like the shot. Profile and still. Oh, it's it's a super cool shot. Like really good like look at the silhouette of this Godzilla, the way that it's sort of shaped, all of its shapes and everything. But there aren't very many of those because a lot of what you're seeing is like its feet stomping things or a close-up of its face or like a close-up of its claws. And I get why they're doing that. I just don't know. I would like to see it more. I know all the reasons why we're not, but I would still like to see it more.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to effects and budget and stuff like that and them trying to... Yeah, I mean, I do... One thing that I give them credit for is I do think they do a good job early on of finding creative ways to obscure him for as long as possible, even when he's in the city,
which I'm down for.
Pieces of him.
Right, you can do that so successfully. Cloverfield does an amazing job of like not showing you the monster, which contributes to sort of like the eerie horror of it all.
Yeah.
But I think at a certain point you start realizing like, oh, you're still kind of doing that. And part of that is just there's portions of this movie that just don't need to repeat as often as they do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's never really a good moment where it's sort of like, now you have a good look at him. Like, I think they try to do that with him when he bursts out of the ground. I think at one point that's when you're supposed to get your good look at him, but it's still not a full body view of him. You know what
it is? We never get the sort of like helicopter shot that we often get in Godzilla movies. That's sort of one where it's like, where you see Godzilla making landfall, or you see Godzilla walking across, a countryside or something like, and you only get like that good helicopter shot,
Well, and I guess they wouldn't have that because this movie, the whole deal with this Godzilla is that like, because he's so agile, he's just like dodging them and hiding them and burrowing everywhere. Yeah. So he's never just going to be like, the thing about Godzilla classically is that like, the thing that's scary about him is that's just this giant monolith in the fucking sky, towering over everything, just standing there, not able to be moved. This Godzilla is never not moving. And if you see him, he's like, no, I'm gone. He's like slithers away like salamanders do and then disappear under the wall, which is a cool idea for a monster. And again, another thing that feels like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, because that beast was very like sort of snaky and serpentine and slithering, would crawl up buildings and then disappear behind them. This Godzilla does a lot of that. It's just,
I just think it's a cop-out if you never get to the point where you can just show the monster. Like, I think at a certain point it's a device and it's a tension thing. But you got to show it at some point. You got to, and part of it is like, not just me wanting to see it, but I think that there are several ways you can communicate scale in a movie, and one of them is the really close-up shots compared to humans, right? Like all those foot shots, like they communicate scale really well. But another way you communicate scale is a wide shot so that you also have it against big things. So like Godzilla up against buildings communicates scale in a very different way. Showing the absolute enormity of the ship in Independence Day like works because you get both it up against smaller things, but also bigger things,
Yeah. Actually, speaking of scale, obviously this Godzilla is like a little guy compared to most Godzillas. Like he's very small. What are your feelings on the size of this Godzilla?
I think it's difficult for me to separate from what I know they're trying to do with it.
I think so too. Me too.
Because I think like generally speaking, I like a big Godzilla because I love the scale of one that is just a mountain moving at you. Like I think that's really cool. But I have a hard time holding that against this Godzilla because it's just really clear that that's not what they're trying to do with the monster. So I don't mind it being small based on what they're trying to do, but in the conversation of Godzilla, I don't love its scale.
Yeah. But again, that just goes back to like, this is Roland Emmerich doing a dinosaur in a city movie.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely.
Like he's not like, so it's, you have to totally recalibrate. Like, the reason that you're scared of Godzilla is not the reason that you're scared. Like the reason that you're scared of a traditional Godzilla is not the reason you're scared of this Godzilla. You're scared of this Godzilla because it's what if a dinosaur was in a city? That's not what you're scared of with a regular Godzilla normally.
Right. I mean, the massive scale of a regular Godzilla is so obvious because it's so big. Maybe you can't even see the top of it. The scary thing about this one is it can hide from you. Like, and that part of it is successful. So I think it's hard to hold against it. Is this the smallest Godzilla, like full-grown Godzilla?
Probably. Okay. I think probably so. I'm not positive, but I don't know what would top it necessarily. I mean,
I think a lot of people would top it.
Some people definitely would. Yeah. Yeah. Roars are a mix between the roars of Showa era Godzilla, elephant sounds, trumpets, and metal slides.
There's no eagle or raptor in there? I was trying to figure out some of the sounds. And I didn't look it up, so
I think that they were imitating the sounds of a raptor with those instruments.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there's a crocodile growl that they do use like once.
That's pretty cool.
When he emerges from the ground, and there's some human voices. I think
Frank Welker,
probably more with the baby Godzillas, but yeah, Frank Welker, as well as Gary A. Hecker and the film sound designer Scott Martin Gershon contribute vocals where needed.
I will say I was really happy that like Godzilla sounds pretty much like a Godzilla. Like I didn't know what to expect because I couldn't really remember, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it sounded pretty different. So I was really pleased. Like it I think
it's modified enough to feel like its own distinct thing, but you still hear the original Godzilla in there.
Right. I think that's what who was it that was talking about like you got to do your own different. Was that Totopoulos?
Totopoulos making the Rembrandt parallel.
This is where you should have been. Like where it's like you're paying homage, but you're doing your own thing. You know.
Yeah.
You are still part of a history.
Yeah. They also, he famously doesn't have atomic breath in this movie, and apparently the sort of quote fire breath where it's basically just him screonking so loud that he ignites cars to make them catch on fire. That was really just kind of like them kind of giving in to what they knew would be the fan reaction. And I think probably fans on the internet who heard rumors that he wouldn't have atomic breath were sort of like, all right, we'll give you a little bit. Here's
the desired
our
imagery at the very least. I'm glad you clarified that because no one in the movie makes any sort of comment on it, so I assumed that's what they were doing, and that it's like it's not actually atomic breath, but it looks like atomic breath.
Looks like it.
But technically it could have gone either way, and I didn't remember it from the cartoon. So
yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't know where to talk about this. Maybe this is better for the plot of the movie, but like this Godzilla also just being like kind of a trans ace icon, honestly, if you think about it.
Yeah, so you asked me what I remembered about this movie, and I was really surprised when I was watching it that there was no moment. I would have bet money that there was a moment where somebody did the like it's a mother or it's a female or it's a whatever. Like I really truly believed that was in this movie. I think I even said I think this is the Godzilla people refer to as she at a certain point because I remembered that it laid eggs and stuff. So I was a little bit surprised that it is consistently referred to as he, but not surprised that it is able to reproduce asexually and lay eggs,
Yeah, I think Matthew Broderick at one point just says that it's a he, but a very unusual he, I think is how he refers to him. Yeah. And it's just like, he's pregnant. It's normal. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like
find that so fascinating.
Kind of cool that it ends up going that way. It sort of like accidentally stumbles into the reality that biologically there are like male animals and humans who are animals that can be pregnant.
Right. It's funny because they just sort of like nobody gets weird about it. It's sort of like, yeah, okay. Like the most
remarkably not weird about it.
The only like little jab that there is not about the gender of Godzilla, but it's about the asexual reproduction.
Right.
When Audrey is just sort of like, where's the fun in that? Which like, whatever.
Sure.
Like that's it. Like other than that, they're just sort of like, yeah, that's just a fact of life. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of weirdly refreshing. Like I know that that's all accidental, but kind of like, kind of nice that you could just acknowledge that like for all people want to talk about biology and shit like that, it's just sort of like, yeah, men can get pregnant sometimes. Yeah. That just happens. That's fine.
It's honestly, I mean, I think it's certainly accidental, but a lot of the things that like queer people latch onto are accidental or unintentional representation that just kind of work out really perfectly for the experience that they're going through. So like obviously Godzilla, reproducing asexually is very different than a human man being pregnant, but like it would make perfect sense to me if Godzilla were a sort of trans male icon. You know what I mean? Like that would make total sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a fascinating thing to come out of this movie.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe there's more than one sort of gay thing that Roland Emmerich has done that I enjoy.
There you go. Yeah. He finally he did have a queer character in a movie before Stonewall and Independence Day Resurgence, and it was Godzilla.
Yeah. Oh my God, Roland Emmerich's first gay character. Although I do think it's not explicit, but I do think Harvey Fierstein is in a movie.
Oh, duh. But Harvey Fierstein is in Independence Day. I totally forgot about that.
I think generally when he's in a movie, you can just sort of be like, yeah, obviously this man is gay. But I don't think it's clear in the movie. He only talks about his mother.
Well, that's pretty gay though.
So
and he also dies
Godzilla
very quickly.
Still, well, yeah.
Yeah. The first Godzilla. Okay, Godzilla is the first openly queer character
There you
in a
go.
Roland Emmerich movie.
There you go.
There you go. Harvey Fierstein. You just got to read between the lines,
Right?
Because
Because the Independence Day ones
only because of the
weren't,
casting.
that was all later.
Yeah. Right. Oh my
Incredible.
God.
Disney would be so proud.
Oh yeah, if this when you were talking about Roland Emmerich making a movie in 2016, making a Godzilla movie in 2016, that would have been like the first openly queer Godzilla, the first gay Godzilla.
Yeah.
Godzilla Pride.
Right? First trans kaiju? Question mark? Wow.
Yeah. And we're gonna be like, no, they've been
stop.
fucking queer people for decades, guys.
Right.
Queer kaiju have existed for such a long time.
Truly. Also, kaiju have existed outside our concept of gender binary literally since the beginning. So
Very true. Very true. Very true. Speaking of Godzilla being pregnant, baby Godzillas. When I asked you for predictions and asked you if there are other kaiju in the movie, that was my trick question because technically there are other kaiju in the movie because there are many baby Godzillas.
And you know what? I really, really strongly remembered. I had like a very strong memory of the closing shot of this movie, and I think the fact that was such a strong memory was overtaking the fact that there just actually are baby Godzillas in this movie. And so when I was watching it, I was like, oh shit, that's right. I think they actually have the baby Godzillas in this movie. I don't think it's just a tease. But even if I knew, I don't know that I guess I might have still answered yes if I were confident, but I was wondering if that was going to come up as a technically wrong answer.
Yeah. Obviously another deal, a combination of CGI, animatronics, and suit acting, depending on the shot.
But way more obviously practical, I think, when you can tell in a good way.
Yeah. No, I think they look really cool most of the time.
I think so too.
7 suits were constructed for them. Four of which were dubbed the quote hero suits. And those hero suits were ones that had fully mechanical heads.
Incredible.
So the ones that you see fully emoting, those are the hero suits. The remaining 3 were much lighter suits with mechanisms only for the eyes and mouths. So probably more for the background.
Sure.
Both types of suits had stilt-like leg extensions built into the feet pieces, which would angle the suit actor at a 45-degree angle, which would very much impair their mobility. So what they did to counteract that was that the tails were lined with a bungee cord running down their lengths, which in addition to providing a counterbalance for the legs, also allowed for the tails to more realistically follow the movements of the rest of their bodies.
Okay, that's actually fucking sick.
Isn't that the coolest fucking shit in the world?
That rules.
So I mean, I think that's why they look so good.
Yeah.
They're people make fun of this as being like it's just a Jurassic Park thing, but it's like they're doing a good fucking Jurassic Park sequence. Sorry, it's fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sending you a picture as well.
But it also is, like you said, it's just cool. It's fun to watch. Oh God, I hate that so much. It's great to illustrate what they're doing, but it's just like a baby Godzilla suit with like a man's head poking out the top instead of the Godzilla head. Yeah,
the picture I just sent Doug is just like the perfect encapsulation of how awkward it had to be to run around in these things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's just basically like squatted at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, it's got to be so uncomfortable. And you know what really sucks though? Is that like they filmed even more than you would see of them running because Emmerich and Totopoulos both apparently felt like there would be too much discrepancies between the movement of the suits and the movement of the CGI models, which to me, I'm sort of like, then keep the fucking suits. It's cooler.
Absolutely.
But they opted for more running for the CGI. I think they just felt like the CGI just looked better to them, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it's
it
really
fine.
hard
It
sometimes
looks fine in the
to
movie.
sort of like, I don't know, like the 1998 CGI. It's always a conversation, right? Like what people evaluate it as
good.
like,
sometimes it looks good. Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes still, right. Still in 2024, sometimes it looks good and sometimes it doesn't. It's just always hard because it's like, what people considered like good looking and impressive CGI work in 1998 is different than what people consider good CGI work in 2024.
Yeah.
It's always going to be like a weird, awkward conversation. Because now you can look at some, like a modern disaster movie and be like, yeah, I guess that's actually happening. I have no way to know that's not real other than I know it didn't happen. Like, now everything's like photorealistic.
I know. Yeah. Right. There were certain points when they didn't need them to run, they would actually bolt the feet of the suits to the ground.
Oh.
So the actors would just, which probably helped them so they wouldn't just topple
Yeah.
over. Yeah. Yeah. They also had, this is actually wild to me. When the baby Godzillas die, which is very sad, when they are dead, they actually built 2 fully articulated mechanical models of those 2 dead ones that you see with fully functional skeletal structures. The reason being was that they wanted it to be really evocative when Godzilla like nuzzles the dead body. And because if they have a full skeleton there, the whole body is going to respond if that head gets nuzzled, which makes it look like a real dead body.
Yeah.
So you can really feel the weight instead of just like a rubber baby. So they went really hard making it that dead baby you see on screen very realistic.
I'm glad the special effects people took that seriously. They might have been the only department. We'll talk more about it.
We're almost done with the stuff. I mean, we can talk about some of the meat of the movie. Some of the other models and props they made models and props for the eggs, like of different kinds. There was one egg, dubbed the hero egg, that was made of fiberglass, featured a removable plug so that when the egg was broken open, they wouldn't have to entirely replace it. They could like replace that plug and it would still work and kind of seamlessly be added there. Cool. They made every other egg was just made of foam though. That one egg that you'd see hatch was fiberglass. Yeah. The rest of them were foam. They made a bunch of miniature ones, for the big backdrop of like a million eggs or whatever, 1,000 eggs, however many it is. Volker Engel described those eggs as potatoes because they're miniatures. Sure. I thought that was kind of funny. And the webbing effect that's on them was just hot glue sprays.
Makes sense to me. Makes perfect sense to me. Work smart,
Yeah. Anything else about the design of these baby Godzillas?
Not about the baby Godzillas, but I don't know how much more we're going to talk about like the CG animation of it all.
No, let's talk about it now.
So it's not a new observation, but I think it's a worthwhile one, is that this movie is absolutely 100% leaning into we're doing CGI in 1998, so it must be at night and it must be raining.
Dude, oh my God. You know what? We're always joking about like the Heisei era is so wet. There's so much wet in this movie. This movie is like, hey, Heisei era, what if there was more water than you could ever fucking believe? Everyone is soaked in every scene. There's like maybe 1 or 2 scenes in this whole movie where it's not pouring down rain. It is bananas how wet this movie is.
I don't know, but I would venture to guess that a massive part of that is the fact that they have a giant CG animated monster running around the city. And
absolutely.
If you've seen movies from around this time, if you've seen the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, there's often no reason for it to be nighttime and raining in these settings, but it does a lot of work to eliminate the sort of like flaws of CG animation at the time. If you can make it dark and if you can make it wet, it just automatically looks better that way. So I couldn't help but notice the moment Godzilla shows up, and then for the rest of the movie, it is just raining.
There are some day shots where it's just people talking and it's still pouring down rain for no reason when Godzilla's not around, to be fair. So I think that they also just were like, what if it was raining?
What if everyone was wet?
they like poor Maria Pitillo having her like, her giant luscious curls. Yeah. And then it's like, sorry, girl, they're just going to be rained on for most of the movie.
For no reason.
For no reason. Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of, okay, the characters of this movie. Because boy, what characters they are. I will say in the broadest sense, I do think when you take a step back and think about it, it is very Godzilla of a movie to, feature heavily scientists, journalists, and military people as sort of your primary cast. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it also makes sense for a Roland Emmerich movie to have
1,000
those collections of characters at the same time. Yeah. It's like take those characters and like triple them. There you go. Yeah. There's your cast. Yes, there's a lot of people in this movie. Start from the primary character. Dr. Nick Tatopoulos is played by Matthew Broderick. I'm really sorry. I've read people like him in this movie. They say that he is likable. I think that he is horrendously awful in this movie. I think that Matthew Broderick is so fucking bad at every turn in this entire movie.
My jaw dropped when you said that, everyone likes what they like. My jaw dropped when you said that people think he's doing a good job in this movie.
He's so awful.
And here's the thing. To be fair to Matthew Broderick, I think Matthew Broderick is an incredibly talented actor. I think Matthew Broderick probably doesn't belong in a movie made by a guy who has no interest in giving characters like depth or backstory.
Yeah, it's only partially Matthew Broderick's problem, although I also think that he is so phoning it in this movie so much.
He starts with an affect that completely disappears like 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, there's that. There's points. Some of his line deliveries don't make any sense. There's like a point when he leaves the tent with Audrey and he's just like, I'll be right back, and leaves. And I'm like, why did you say it like that? You just like were literally saying I'll be right back.
Yeah.
There's the point when he first sees Audrey again and he's just like completely like dead in the eyes, monotone. Every delivery just sounds like a way Matthew Broderick would say any words. And Audrey's like, are you still mad at me? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Are you still? I can't tell that he's mad about anything.
Right.
I can't tell that he has a single emotion other than I'm Matthew Broderick in a movie reading my lines.
Right. And maybe, maybe this is diva behavior. Maybe it's not. But like, I do think I can't imagine a world where Matthew Broderick feels particularly compelled to put much into this role, given like how it's written, what his sort of position is. I'm not saying that's a reason. I'm not saying it's okay, no. But like, I just don't know that he needs to be in a movie with 14,000 other characters.
No. Here's the thing that's ridiculous to me, that blew my mind when I learned it. This part was written for Matthew Broderick because Devlin and Emmerich had been wanting to work with him for multiple movies. Emmerich said like they kind of wanted him to be James Spader's role in Stargate. They wanted to be Jeff Goldblum's role in Independence Day. Like this was finally the movie where they could get him. And this is the part that they put him in.
Okay, one, I nailed it. That's exactly the archetype. That is exactly the Roland Emmerich archetype. But it's nowhere near like,
no.
And it's wild to me they wrote this for him. To me, that really does just sort of say like, I don't know, he got it and just wasn't into it or something, or like
clearly
thought they were writing something for him that ended up being like not very good. I mean, The thing with Spader and Goldblum is that like, they're caricatures. They're like cartoon characters in their movies, and in endearing ways. They're not like, the comic clown or anything, but they are very cartoonish in who they are in those movies. Yeah. Matthew Broderick is just any guy, and it's weird because I feel like I can tell who he's supposed to be for Devlin and Emmerich, but he just isn't doing it, and I don't really understand why. It's weird.
I think it's everybody's fault because Matthew Broderick could have done something weird to make this role fun in a way that like Spader and Goldblum have very particular affects that they can apply to their characters. Broderick like already does have his own sort of unique vibe that is only Matthew Broderick, but he feels like he downplays it for this role, so he ends up being like nothing, Yeah,
it's really weird. I didn't enjoy him either, and I had no idea that like there was a conversation there. I kind of expected everybody probably just saw that he like wasn't doing much.
Yeah, I think people like him in Ferris Bueller and give him a pass, and I'm like, no,
I like him in plenty of things, but
I also don't. I also think that when he's bad, he's really bad.
I think that's very
fair.
Is the thing. Yeah, I think it's really fair.
I mean, and he's like, this is around the time that he does like Inspector Gadget and shit. He's horrendous in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're trying to put Matthew Broderick in like the lead role in like your tentpole blockbusters. I don't understand.
I will say this: I do think that this cast in general. Like, I think they miscast a few people at least.
They miscast most.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, it's true.
There are some that are like exactly who they should be, and I wish they were in a better movie. But I do think several people are miscast. I think Matthew Broderick is a perfect example of somebody who's just not in the right role. I think he could have been in other roles in this movie that would have been fine.
I can see Matthew Broderick being in an action movie like this, and the whole point is that he's kind of the odd man out in it. And I could even like where it's like, I can't believe Matthew Broderick is in an action movie, and that's kind of like how you can get the energy of that character to work. And I can see a role of a lead scientist character that also is kind of out of his element in an action movie, and that's kind of part of the charm of it, but he still becomes the hero. But they don't do either of those things.
They were trying to make him the Spader or the Goldblum, and I think they either needed to make him like the Brent Spiner, like way over the top weirdo scientist guy, or they needed to just not have him be a scientist, you know, like, I don't know.
Or you just don't have Matthew Broderick in the role and have someone who's better at playing maybe a more generic man, but having fun with it.
Honestly, what's weird is like Matthew Broderick might be like too not generic for this part that other, and that's not a dig on the other guys. I think they just do a good job in this role where they get to kind of take the reins. But I say that because I think Kevin Dunn is like, how do you feel about him as a hard ass military colonel?
I think I like him because it doesn't make any sense, because he is like a dad figure who's a big softie. Yeah. But I think in this movie, the take on the military in this movie is that no one is fit for it and everyone is incompetent. Everyone makes bad decisions. And in a movie that had more to say about that, I think Kevin Dunn as Colonel Hicks makes so much sense because it is someone who's just sort of like, he is just so completely out of his element and doesn't know how to make good decisions, and you want to like him for it. You know what I mean?
I get that. And I think
because he has the similar energy because of him, when you put him with the O'Neill character, that also is just his whole character arc is he's a guy who just fucks up badly and then doesn't fuck up once and then that's redeems him somehow. Yeah. Like, that's the whole vibe of this movie is that it's people who shouldn't be in these military roles are in military roles. And any of the movie was actually saying something. If it was actually saying something, it would make sense. Right. It's not. It's supposed to be playing it straight, I guess. So then it doesn't make sense.
I think if there were, I think if I knew somebody else were, in the driver's seat, I would think it was trying to say something about the military. Right. I just think this is weird comedy that they're doing. And I think because it's weird comedy that they're doing, I don't know that Kevin Dunn's in the right spot, because I think the weird comedy thing to do would be to have the person in his position be exasperated by all of the idiots around him who can't carry out any sort of like normal, order. Like they can't do anything right. And instead they have people in a control room doing that. And I feel like Kevin Dunn's position could have perfectly done that for comedy. So I guess maybe it's like the idea of like, do you want to lean into what he's trying to do with the comedy, and does that make sense? Or are you trying to lean into the farce of it all? And maybe Kevin Dunn makes a little bit more sense, but I just can't buy him ever. Too many times he's like actually being a hard ass to Matthew Broderick's character, and I just can't buy it. I don't think it's working.
I think that there's a real problem with this movie of it not having real villains. It has like people in antagonistic roles, but it doesn't have characters that are just straight up villains. And so you have characters that could be more villainous or could be more hard ass or could be more serious. But because this Emmerich and Devlin clearly don't take any of this seriously and want to make it a comedy, then every character gets softened. So even characters like Kevin Dunn's character, who could be a more antagonistic character, is like softened too much.
That's a good point, actually.
There's no one is in a villainous role in this movie, which is weird for a Godzilla movie.
It is. It's not. But it's not weird for a Roland Emmerich movie.
It's not. You know what I mean? It's true. That's true. He doesn't really have villains. The villains are forces of nature. In his movies. That's such a good point.
But I do think there's a world where Kevin Dunn is allowed to be more over the top. And if Kevin Dunn's allowed to lose his shit, I can see it. I have an easier time seeing it. But yeah, I think you're right. There really isn't a villain in here, which I don't think quite works for the Godzilla movie. And I think as a result isn't really working for the Roland Emmerich side.
Because if the military was directly the villain in it, I think this movie improves tenfold. Yeah. Where that's taken seriously, rather than they just like comically fucking everything up and destroying New York by themselves.
Because
isn't that silly?
Part of the movie, which I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about, is like, I don't think this movie has much to say about Godzilla and how people react to Godzilla. I think a lot of times those heroes and villains are defined by their feelings on Godzilla and how that's communicated to us as the audience, right? So if there's not a distinction between Matthew Broderick and Kevin Dunn and how they feel about the monster, who's who cares, you know?
That's true.
Somebody that I do like, and I really, really, really wish that they weren't in this movie and were in a better Godzilla movie, is Jean Reno. I really, really feel like he deserves to be in a good Godzilla movie.
He is the VIP of this, and I think he's only able to get away with what he does is because I think he very much knows what movie he's in.
Yeah.
And also his character is allowed to be cartoony in a way that's really entertaining. And he just brings pathos to a character that is a cartoon and then makes it all come together and work. He's the best part of the movie.
I really think he's my favorite cast person, cast like verb. I think he's the best cast person.
Yeah.
And I feel like I think the reason I feel so good about him is I think he does what he's given here really well. And I also could see him in so many other sort of versions of a Godzilla movie being really good, right? Whether he is the villain of the movie, whether he is there's so many Godzilla roles, right? There's businessmen, there's military, there's like all these kind of things that I think he could slot pretty well into. He could, if he were part of a Godzilla movie that was very much a political drama, I feel like he would fit perfectly in that too. So I was excited to see him in this, and I wasn't disappointed by him, but I think I was ultimately sort of like, damn, you're not going to be in a Godzilla movie again, and I really wish you were.
yeah, I know. He's so good. Did you know, I just learned he did the French dub voices for Porco Rosso and Porco Rosso.
Oh, hell yeah.
Shadow in Homeward Bound and Mufasa in The Lion King.
I did know Mufasa, and I was really hoping you were going to say Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mufasa I did know. I didn't know the other ones. That's awesome.
It's funny. Yeah. I love him.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
Maria Pitillo as Audrey.
Sure.
So here's the thing. Here's where we can talk a little bit about some misogyny.
Uh-huh.
Out of everyone in this movie, she's the only one whose career was basically ruined by this movie.
Yeah.
It was relatively early in
her career. Got it.
Real life career, because it was pretty early in her career as a lead. She'd been in supporting roles in movies and TV throughout the 90s. Like she wasn't a nobody. She was in like Chaplin, for example, but like always in supporting roles. This was clearly meant to be a breakout performance for her as a lead, because it was the first time she could be a lead in a movie, right? Yeah. In a big major blockbuster that everyone was supposed to be seeing. But after this movie comes out, obviously this movie is shat upon on many places, but like her performance is very frequently singled out. Even in like books that I was reading about it now, they very frequently single out her as being like the weakest link in the cast. Even with like, I know.
Sorry, I reacted with, like, silently, but very strongly.
Yeah. And even in like, I know that, the fucking Razzies don't really matter, but if you want where culture is in like annoying film culture, this movie obviously won a bunch of Razzies for being bad because everyone loved to make fun of it. She herself won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Supporting Actress in 1999, which, first of all, lead actress. What are you talking about? But also she won it for that. And this movie is very commonly cited as derailing her career, because she really doesn't really do very much after this. There's an entire section of her Wikipedia that's just made up of failed pilots that she was in starting from 1998 onward, and she retired from acting in 2008. So this movie kind of seems to have ruined her. I don't think that she is like amazing, but I don't think anyone is particularly amazing in this movie.
No, I have strong feelings about that, because I don't think first off, starting with, I don't think Maria Pitillo, if you think she's bad in this movie, is significantly worse than anyone else who is being bad in this movie. I also don't think she's exceptionally bad in this movie. I wouldn't even say she's bad in this movie. I think
she's fine.
I think what's complicated about Maria Pitillo in this movie is that she is one character out of a bunch of characters who don't, like, she gets to actually do things that like change where she's at and what she's doing. Like, she's taking action, and she's like exhibiting agency in this movie in a way that like other characters don't have the opportunity to. Like, they're on a path and they stay on that path. And I think her story is actually interesting in a slimmer movie. You know what I mean? Like, this reporter, journalists, Godzilla movies, great. This reporter who's facing like a deeply like misogynist workplace that will not allow her success, and then is convinced to do something shitty in order to move forward, and then realizes like, fuck, not only did I fuck over this guy that I probably should care more for, or just do care more for, or is just a person I shouldn't fuck over like that, but 2, it also didn't pay off, right? Like, I think there's really interesting stuff there, and I think for what she's written, I think she's doing it well. Like, I don't know what she's supposed to be doing differently for that
What else
role.
could she do? Yeah,
she's in the context of this movie, people see her as like a ditzy, like unserious or like not serious enough or not cutthroat enough person. So I don't know what people are picking apart in her performance, because I feel like she delivers that.
Yeah, well,
am I crazy?
Same people who think Matthew Broderick was likable in this movie. So
is it because they think he's likable and she screws him over? Like he's a puppy dog?
I think it literally is just like misogyny.
Like, I think
honestly, truly, I genuinely think that's what it is. Because I think she is a character that if you want to be in bad faith, you can hate her because she betrays Matthew Broderick at one point. Like, and I think people latch onto that. And it's like, well, she fucking sucks. And there you go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
She's
I
not
don't know.
real. The character is fake, you guys.
Well,
Matthew Broderick's character is
I'm
fake.
just,
No, I understand.
I'm rationalizing.
No. I'm not saying
know?
this to you. I'm saying it to the people who might be rationalizing it that way. Like, I do think one of the most interesting, if not maybe the most interesting character dynamic between two characters is those two. I don't think we get very much of it. I think it is a very Roland Emmerich sort of backstory to be like, we were together and now we're not, and we haven't talked, and that's all you'll ever know about us. But the fact that their current present day relationship is one where they do have history, and she also has this layer of like taking advantage of him to further her career. I think that's really interesting, and I also think it's an interesting thing to have her specifically as the leading actress do in this movie. I don't know. People need to grow up. I think that's cool.
Yeah. Justice for Maria Pitillo.
Absolutely.
She deserved better.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying she should have like won an Academy Award for this, but but
I
think she is serving exactly what she is supposed to be serving in a way that not everybody else does.
Right, and I think again, she's the only one whose career was like fucked over. Everyone else, Roland Emmerich is way more responsible for anything in this movie that's bad.
Yeah.
He's had a fucking fantastic career.
Yeah.
Why did Maria Pitillo have to be the one who suffered from this? Like, come on,
that's
dude.
a bummer.
Yeah, it's a real bummer. It's a real bummer. There's also like the weird Simpsons of it all. There's three Simpsons actor in this: Hank Azaria, Harry Shearer, and Nancy Cartwright. Hank Azaria obviously as Animal. Harry Shearer as Cayman the reporter, and Nancy Cartwright is just his secretary. I don't know why they gave her nothing to do, but whatever. And Hank Azaria just said on Reddit in 2013 that the only reason that happened was because Dean Devlin is just a fan of The Simpsons and asked them all to be.
Oh, that's a Dean Devlin thing. Sure. I was going to say, like, it is not a weird thing for Roland Emmerich to introduce an actor you're pretty sure is going to survive and kill them like 30 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Not that she ends up like getting killed, but like to have her there and not do anything.
Yeah. But I think, he probably just didn't have a role for Nancy Cartwright. Right. So she just gets a cameo and the other two get like, more important roles.
Yeah.
We could talk about them separately, but like there's also on that same track, like Vicki Lewis as Dr. Chapman is like a news radio person. So another like comedy person in sort of that same sort of alt comedy kind of realm that The Simpsons was in at the time, like that you wouldn't expect to see in like a big blockbuster action movie.
Sure.
Also, I think kind of falls in with that vein with them.
Gotcha.
With their sort of interesting choices with casting,
Yeah, I do want to talk about Vicki Lewis and Malcolm Denari.
Yes.
But let's talk about the Hank Azaria, like that group. Yeah. Because I think they're interesting.
I think Hank Azaria is really fun in this movie.
I agree.
I think that he's doing great. I think he is one of the good ones in this movie. And a part of that is just because his character is meant to be likable, fun comic relief itself.
And he can do
that. And he can do that. So like he is well cast in that role. He's the one that if you're a kid watching it, he gets to do all the funny things and have the funny reactions. So great. I like him in the movie.
Yep. I think he's good.
Yeah.
He's somebody who is cast correctly and delivers. Yeah.
Honestly, Harry Shearer too, like he's good at playing a smarmy asshole reporter. So
closest we get to a villain.
Closest we get to a villain. What's with this movie and like employers who are sexually harassing their employees? Because both Harry Shearer and Vicki Lewis do that is how they're introduced.
Well,
and it's treated wildly differently between the two of them.
Well, of course it is. Are you kidding me? One of them is a
man, was a woman.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It's a dream to be hit on by your boss if you're a man and she's a woman. And it's horrifying, as it should be if it's the other way around. Yeah, they're treated very differently, of course.
Oh my God, it's so weird.
Kamen is gross, and it's like there's nothing subtle or nuanced about it. He is disgusting, and you're supposed to know he's disgusting. And you are supposed to root, obviously, for Audrey. Aubrey. You're supposed to root for her, obviously, in the face of this guy. Like, you want her to have the victory, which I think is part of what makes her story so interesting, is she has to do something shitty in order to get the victory, or at least think she gets the victory over this horrible dude. And I think, I mean, he's not in the movie very much, but like, he's there to be a smarmy asshole, and he does it really, really well.
Yeah.
I think the Vicki Lewis situation. Is there anything you want to say about Arabella Field, who is like Lucy? And
no,
okay,
she's fine.
Okay, because I was gonna just kind of keep going.
Yeah, go for it.
But Vicki Lewis, I am bummed she didn't get more to do in this movie. Like, I feel that way about her specifically.
Why is she in it if that's all they had her do? Because I like Vicki Lewis. Like, I think she's great, and I think she can be really, really funny. She doesn't really get opportunities to be particularly funny in this movie. Like, no, I don't really understand.
It's really weird. And I honestly feel that way. I mean, Vicki Lewis, I feel more about it, but I feel that way about both Vicki Lewis and Malcolm Danare. I feel like they're a potentially fun duo of scientists.
Yeah. Well, watch Godzilla the series, because you'll be surprised at who the main cast of that show is versus who the main cast of this movie is.
Right.
I think that they made very smart choices for the characters to focus on for the cartoon compared to the choices they made for the movie.
Maybe it's just my subconscious taking charge, but I think even just watching the movie, there's like plenty there. I'm very frustrated by the Malcolm Danare of it all, because
absolutely.
First off,
why is he wasted in this movie?
Like, This is me as a kid, but also me now. Like, he's so hot in this movie. Like, he really, really is.
And that means a lot, considering he's introduced with him like sneezing into his hand.
Okay,
the fact that you still think he's hot in spite of that, speaks to how hot he is. Yeah.
Why does he have to pretend to be sick the whole movie? It's pointless and stupid, and I hate it.
Because it's a funny bit,
no,
Doug.
It's
a funny comedy movie full of jokes that are very funny that you love, and running gags that are always funny.
It's so frustrating. And I was so excited to see what these characters were doing in this movie, and they don't get to do anything. She gets to hit on Matthew Broderick, who's not the cute one in the backseat. Hello.
Oh my God. Seriously.
And then, like, Malcolm Danare's character just sneezes and smiles and laughs when he's not supposed to. Like, that's truly all he gets to do. And then
until Vicki Lewis kisses him at the end of the movie, and that's supposed to be the resolution of a grand romance that we were watching for 2.5 hours.
And what's so weird is all she does is that, and then hit on Matthew Broderick. The in-between is like almost nothing. There's a moment where she like feels bad that Matthew Broderick gets like fired or whatever. But like
she's the one who believes him out of all the scientists, I guess.
But why are we supposed to care? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, she and the two scientists don't do anything. Yeah, so it does make it extremely frustrating at the end when the two of them just like kiss out of nowhere, and it doesn't mean anything, and she's like disgusted that she kissed him in the first place, and it's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, I'm glad the animated series like recognized it. I know at the very least he voices his character. Does she voice her character?
No,
that's a bummer.
Vicki Lewis was like, I'm not doing this. I'm going back to news radio.
I don't know why she would, but like, I know there's a few of them. I think Jean Reno did too. Isn't he in the cartoon? Did he? I
don't remember if he
or Kevin Dunn. Sorry, Kevin Dunn.
Kevin Dunn. Yeah, Kevin Dunn shows up again. I think there might be someone else who shows up too.
I think there's a few.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that really frustrated me. And I don't know, I shouldn't be as frustrated because they're such a small part of the movie, but I think I'm frustrated because they're such a small part.
But when you could see them and see that there is still characterization and like actors who are trying to do something compared to like Matthew Broderick in the main role, that's what pisses me off.
Actually, that's exactly what it is, right? Vicki Lewis and Malcolm Danare are putting their ass into their characters and don't get to do jack shit with them. And Matthew Broderick is putting 0% of his ass into his character and is the whole movie. That I think you exactly identified why I'm so frustrated about how those two are treated. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. There's also the weird Siskel and Ebert thing. It's Mayor Ebert and his assistant Gene.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing to it. They gave Independence Day bad reviews. So Roland Emmerich's like, I'm going to slyly, I'm just gonna slyly, make a funny little joke at their expense. And the way he does it is the most like over the top, like Michael Lerner style to look as much like Roger Ebert as you could. And then that guy who plays Gene, like being like a subservient little loser, and Ebert being a fucking monster who's like obsessed with eating candy. It's so like weirdly mean spirited. And like the thing, like, I think Siskel and Ebert is sort of like, that's weird, kind of funny, but it's just like bizarre how, especially because you were just saying like Emmerich normally like doesn't care about how people see his movies, but then it's like, seems like you care a lot, actually, buddy.
Well,
what people think about your movies.
I do believe that Roger Ebert was like pretty fixated on how much he thought Stargate sucked.
Okay, but he thinks most good movies suck. That's Ebert.
And
in
also,
a nutshell.
Stargate's not that good, so get over it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm specifically talking about the movie. I've heard the show is good. Don't at me. Only at me about the movie. But like, I didn't pick up on that. Like, what didn't occur to me, like I didn't think about it. And you telling me that makes it make so much more sense, but doesn't make it in the slightest any better. It actually kind of makes it worse because it kind of contributes to the sort of overall vibe that Roland Emmerich like isn't making this movie for the movie itself. Like he just is sort of like doing things to like fill the space, and he's sort of like, what if I use this opportunity to like take a dig at this guy that doesn't like my movie? It's like a weird thing to do. Just make a character. Make a character. If you want a funny character, make them. Yeah. Because I didn't really. And again, like Roland Emmerich loves a massive cast, so it's not that weird to just have this like weird duo like being goofy. But I didn't quite understand why we needed them as much as we did, and I guess that's it. I guess that's why. Yeah.
Weird. Stupid.
Really strange.
Very strange.
Yeah, I mean, from a Godzilla perspective, like too many characters, not enough stuff to do, really annoying. From a Roland Emmerich perspective, like I'm not shocked. Doesn't make it better. Yeah. Doesn't make it better.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. What else do you want to talk about? Literally anything.
Just like,
okay, actually,
doors are open.
Doors are open. Great. And I'm going to actually start real quick because this is the very top. The opening credits of this movie are so fucking funny. The sepia tone with just all the swimming iguanas superimposed with atomic explosions. Okay. My favorite thing I've ever seen is the name Hank Azaria on screen next to a sepia tone swimming iguana. One of the greatest images ever made in mankind. Just art, just true art.
Did not remember that at all. Hit play on the movie and was like, what am I watching?
These iguanas just chilling, watching these nuclear explosions as this dramatic music is playing. It is the most unserious way to start a movie.
What's funny too is like this movie doesn't explicitly say, right? Implied, absolutely. But I don't think it explicitly says Godzilla is an iguana, right? They call it a hybrid and a mutation and all this other stuff.
I feel like they name drop the name of a lizard. Matthew Broderick drops the name of a lizard at least once.
Okay. I mean, even if it's the one time, it's still very funny to me that the opening credits are basically like, and here's how Godzilla was created, by just showing you images of iguanas and an atomic bomb. Like it is it's just a really funny way to do like
it's
credits.
Subtle. It's so subtle.
Well, you know how like sometimes credits can do like a lot of work in like setting up, a lot of exposition and lore or whatever. This like feels like that's what they thought they were doing. And you know what? Kind of love it. Really funny. Really funny way to open up. Kind of feels like it's about to be a horror movie. But okay.
Yeah. But then it does actually open up, like many Godzilla movies do, with like a Japanese fishing boat. Yeah, actually. Which I think is sort of an interesting choice.
I think it's really cool. One of the things I like about this movie is that it does recognize and utilize. I think the fishing boats, because there's multiple, right? There's the canning, there's the canning tanker or whatever, the canning cargo ship rather, and then there's also the little trolleys that are doing fishing, and then there's the guy on the dock. And I feel like that is a really good example of these folks recognizing some elements from Godzilla that are translatable and applying them to a new setting that still really feel like, I'm watching a Godzilla movie. Like, I thought that was good, and there's multiple examples of it, and I really like the Canning cargo ship set when they go to visit it. I think it's all CGI probably, but like
but it looks cool
with the claw marks on it. And I thought the sequence of the trolleys getting pulled under the water and then plunging back up through the surface is really, really good. Like,
that
really
shit.
good.
No, I totally agree. It's frightening.
It feels very much like it could have been in like any Heisei movie we watched.
Mm-hmm. Even, at the dock, it's played a little bit sillier, a little more for comedy, but the fisherman at the dock, when that water bulges up and then you just see some of the dorsal fins and then the pier just starts like exploding because this body's swimming under it, that shit's good. And I feel like Godzilla movies in Japan do kind of riff on that sequence after this movie happens a little bit. The water bulge is such a cool effect and it's so evocative. Like what that's the thing that's frustrating about this movie is that when it nails it, it really does nail it,
I think attention was put into the things that they thought were cool and attention was not put into the things that they weren't interested in. Like I think it's really, really clear. And that dock shot is very cool because that man is not running away from explosions and it looks really, really good, Mm-hmm. And the water bulge is very cool. One of the reasons I say that I think Roland Emmerich post 2012, the movie, could make a really cool Godzilla movie is because I just imagine what those water sequences would look like now, knowing what he's capable of now, and knowing that he's fucking obsessed with tidal waves. Dude cannot stop. So I think he would do some cool stuff with that. And he does cool stuff here with any of the boat stuff. All the boat stuff is really cool.
Yeah, colossal Godzilla creating a tidal wave is pretty killer idea, actually.
There's a really, really cool... I mean, like I said, Resurgence is a bad movie, but there is a really cool sort of like tidal wavy type thing that one does that I'm like, ooh, I would like to see what you do with like a gargantuan Godzilla.
I do think it's funny, before we get away from the Japanese boat completely, the maybe like 3.5 seconds that there are any Japanese people in this movie. I do think it's kind of funny the way that your first shot, when it's sort of like, if you weren't clear that these are Japanese people, of course, the first man you see is watching sumo wrestling.
Sure.
The thing that everyone in America associates with Japan. Like, that felt a little bit pointed to me.
Yeah. Okay. Also, I'm frustrated because it is not uncommon for the scale of one of these big disaster movies to be international. And generally speaking, not all the time, most of the time, Roland Emmerich movies will subtitle people speaking in other languages. And I was so frustrated that this opening never subtitles any of the Japanese people. It just says speaking Japanese. And it's particularly annoying because it's only them. There are people who speak French in this movie that get subtitled. It's only them. But also, I'm pretty sure the survivor's name is Ogata. But I don't know that.
No, wait, really?
I think so, but I don't know that for sure because it's not subtitled. I'm pretty sure the doctor asks him how he's like when he translates, ask him how he's doing. I'm pretty sure he says Ogata, which is a cool little reference that I don't know how anyone would catch because they don't fucking subtitle the Japanese people, which is annoying.
Frustrating.
But I do think that's a cool detail if I'm right.
It would be cool if you're right.
They're not credited as Ogata, so I don't know.
That's the old man that like names him Gojira, right?
Yes.
Or Gojira,
which would be kind of a perfect reference for the person who names Gojira in the film,
Yeah.
I did kind of chuckle at the "here's your sample, study it" moment. I thought that was kind of fun, but I was never really buying the relationship between Nick and the Colonel anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I like the hole in the MetLife building. I think that
the hole in the MetLife building is really funny. Funny. Can we? What do you think of the execution of them chasing Godzilla through the city? Because I think the idea and the execution are pretty different. Like bringing up the MetLife building thing, I think that's cool. I think what they did with that is cool. But I'm curious if you have similar, like how you feel like they executed it. I don't know.
I think I think a lot of it's wrapped up in the bizarreness of like, Godzilla doesn't really cause much of any destruction. It's the military always causing the destruction all the time.
Sure.
And a lot of the chasing Godzilla stuff is more in service of how can we find funny ways for the military to accidentally blow up the the Chrysler Building and these iconic buildings, which I think takes away from what could be a really cool chase sequence. And I think also because out of all the millions of main characters you have in the movie, none of the main characters are the ones that are like in the helicopters chasing Godzilla.
There's no Will Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So like there's nobody to really get invested in. So there's just these nameless guys that like try to find Godzilla and then get tricked by Godzilla, which I do think is a funny concept that Godzilla tricks them by making like fake holes in buildings and stuff so that he can come up from the other side and eat them. But like, there's no investment because I don't know who the fuck the characters are, even though there's a million characters in this movie,
right?
You know?
Yeah. That helps me clarify some of my feelings because I do think it is cool in concept and I think it could be really cool in execution, but I wasn't like feeling as like into it as I wanted to be based on how cool I think it could be. And I think, I think it's because they do it a lot more than I think the movie needs to. And I think like one really good, like long tracked sort of uninterrupted shot of them chasing Godzilla through buildings in a sort of like first person, not literally first person, but in a way that feels like a first person video game, because a lot of those sequences feel like a video game where you're chasing something or being chased by something. One really good long sequence I think could have gone a long way, but then they keep doing sequences and I feel like it loses any luster it could have had. And I think part of it, I'm glad you said the thing about like who's actually involved in those scenes, because I think that does make a big difference. I think maybe I wouldn't have minded it as much if it was actually people involved in the storylines.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned the destruction from the military and the buildings and all that sort of stuff. I don't know that there's like much more that we have to say about it, but like it's funny, but like you were saying earlier, I wish that it was saying anything. I think it is just meant to be funny that they break the Chrysler Building. Yeah, which is weird, right?
It's just I just don't understand how, if you're Roland Emmerich, and I know he's not like famous for the disaster stuff yet, but he has done Independence Day, which does famously have aliens destroying lots of buildings.
Iconic buildings.
Iconic buildings. And I don't understand how you don't look at a Godzilla movie and be like, Godzilla destroys iconic buildings.
I think that's what's really strange about it, right?
It ends up being like, it's like, is he trying to do some Galaxy Brain 4D chess subversion of like, it's interesting that Godzilla isn't the one destroying these iconic buildings, even though we expect him to. But he doesn't usually make movies where he's thinking like that. He's usually making movies where it's like, I'm going to give you what you want to see, which is buildings getting destroyed by the force of nature, and the force of nature is Godzilla.
Right.
So I don't understand.
And in a way, like a lot of his stuff, it's like, I'm going to introduce to you the mechanic in which things get destroyed very fast. And then the rest of the movie is running from that, figuring that out, whatever. And this movie starts in that direction. Like Godzilla is there pretty quick, especially compared to some of the movies we've watched. But yeah, it is weird that like, I don't know.
Does Godzilla really destroy like anything, really? Like he puts holes in things.
Godzilla puts holes in things and his tail is constantly running up against things. But I think that is more them trying to flex special effects than it is anything else.
Like, why isn't he like beheading? Like, why didn't this Godzilla behead the Statue of Liberty before Cloverfield did?
Well,
you know what I mean?
I don't know why. Okay, in the cartoon, doesn't Godzilla literally like crawl up a building in like a cool way? Like, why doesn't that happen? Why doesn't he like snap a building over or something? I don't know. I just think it would be cool.
It's just weird. It's weird missed opportunities for what you like. I'm not asking for much. I'm asking for a head empty Emmerich disaster destruction movie.
And I think that's
and you don't really get that in this movie.
I think that's where it gets into the weird territory of like, is this a good Roland Emmerich movie? I don't even think so.
I don't think it is.
I think it's like,
I don't think it is.
No, I think my least favorite Roland Emmerich movie is the 10,000 BC one, but that has nothing to do with what he typically makes. And then this is probably my next least favorite one because it doesn't do what he does. It's really bizarre for him to have destruction that isn't caused by the thing he introduces as the mechanic for destruction. It's really weird.
I think that's a great way to put it, though. It's like if you compare this directly to like Independence Day, which is my touch point for Emmerich, because that's my favorite Emmerich movie.
Well, and for a lot of people, the introduction to like what he becomes known for.
Right. But if you put it up against that, it's like Independence Day has a huge cast, but of likable characters played by actors who are playing specific roles, has a good balance of comedy and pathos. Like, there are plenty of moments in the movie that are taken very seriously, and you're meant to take them seriously, even in the context of this very fun movie. There's also jokes that are very, very funny, and you get what you're asking for if you want an alien invasion movie where aliens destroy a bunch of fucking landmarks, cause tons of destruction, and people have to rally together to defeat them. You get that in spades.
Yeah.
This Godzilla movie doesn't have likable characters, have actors that are not interested in playing those characters outside of like Jean Reno and Hank Azaria, does not have Godzilla causing destruction of landmarks, does not give you what you want of wanting to see Godzilla destroy landmarks and seeing people rally together to destroy Godzilla. It does none of those things.
It's weird because it sets you up to expect it too. It's not like the movie, it's not like we have unrealistic expectations for what the movie begins to become.
We're not asking it to, we're not asking it to be anything different than what's set up, and we're not asking it to be a Heisei Godzilla movie.
We're asking for it to be a Roland Emmerich Godzilla destruction movie, like Godzilla disaster movie. And it's weird because it's on track, right? Like, and there's really evocative stuff like the dock thing. I'm so entertained by the real life set and acting of it all, but I also love the way it looks in the movie. I love everyone having to sort of coordinate jumping and stumbling to sell the idea that Godzilla's stomps are shaking the earth. It's so cool. It's really, really cool and fun.
It's so true.
And it's the kind of thing that, like, I want to be a part of shooting one of those scenes. It seems like it would be a blast to sort of have somebody count down, like, all right, 3, 2, 1, and then everybody sort of like does their little like hop, against the cars that are all hopping. It's really cool. And it really does sort of set you up, especially because the first things you see are Godzilla like stomping things and stomping people and crushing cars and all that sort of stuff. You kind of just assume that'll be the case. One thing that's really weird about the movie, building off of that, is that Godzilla isn't really the one destroying things on purpose. The military is, but there's nobody really in the movie that is like that sympathetic towards Godzilla. So it's not like anybody points out, like there's one moment where Matthew Broderick's character says, this isn't an enemy that's trying to evade you. It's just an animal. And like, that's where that character should have turned into the sympathetic character who's fighting against the military trying to destroy the monster.
Yes, because they even position him against the military because they kick him out. Right. But it's just like, not because of himself, it's like all by accident.
Right. Well, and I like that moment so much, and then it doesn't really go anywhere because Matthew Broderick's character never stops believing that the right thing to do is to physically stop Godzilla. You know what I mean?
He's gung-ho about shooting down Godzilla, blowing up and killing his babies.
Right, and then goes on.
So happy to murder all of these little baby dinosaurs. Right. It's really bizarre.
Right, it's really strange because like you have this character who is posed to ultimately be the one who's sympathetic. Even if they still do all the same things that they do, Nick should be the one who's upset by everything they do and trying to stop it. He should be their
Dr. Yamane.
100% he should be. Yeah. Right. And that just doesn't exist in any character. Or that should have been Lewis and Daenerys characters or somebody should have had a problem with it. Right. And so then it creates this weird scenario where it's like, if he's not destroying anything and he's not like, and we're supposed to believe he's just an animal acting like an animal does, what are we supposed to feel when he's dead at the end and you've eradicated the species, right? Like intentionally.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing to try to wrap your head around.
And they try to, like, there are bits of it where the movie outside of the characters seems to be trying to gain sympathy from the audience. Like when Godzilla is nuzzling again, the corpses of his dead newborn babies that were just blown up in front of him. The music is going all out to try to make you feel sad, and the Godzilla character making sad noises. And then when Godzilla himself dies on the bridge, the music swells to being really sad, and you kind of, I guess, get Matthew Broderick looking at him a little bit mournfully. As much as Matthew Broderick's willing to give, the 0% is willing to give, you kind of get a little bit of it. But then the characters themselves are sort of like, well, this is great. Yeah, kill more babies. It's a weird, the contradiction of that is really weird.
I think the baby thing really is like the biggest wrench, because you could have a movie where Matthew Broderick is the only person with the knowledge and ability to stop Godzilla, and the only way to do it is something terrible, like your oxygen destroyer situation, right? Like we have to do something, and unfortunately I am the one who become death, you know?
Right.
Like that could have been totally fine, and then he could have been sympathetic towards Godzilla, but also recognized that, like, I can't let millions of people die, you know?
Yeah.
But then to add the baby thing in there is really weird. And I also think just from a storytelling standpoint and a movie structuring a franchise, because this was meant to start a franchise, right? We didn't really explicitly talk about that. But
the second movie, I mean, that's another one that I think maybe we'll save for a unmade Godzilla movie thing. But like, there were scripts being written for Godzilla 2. This cast was signed on for like a trilogy of movies. Yeah.
So
right.
what's really weird about the babies thing, and I want to say, like, I think the babies are cool. Like, I think it's really cool.
Sure.
Like, one of my favorite things about the movie.
I love the sequences they do with the babies in the movie.
One of my favorite things about this movie is that Godzilla we talked about it, is pregnant and is just nesting and is laying a bunch of eggs and is just doing an animal thing. And then we actually get to see the babies. That's really cool. But I do think what's weird is having the babies, having 200 of them hatch in this movie. When if you're already planning a franchise, I feel like the thing that makes sense is to establish towards the end that this Godzilla can lay eggs, try to prevent that in some way and fail, and then the next movie, maybe you stop Godzilla but you can't find or stop all the eggs, and then the next movie is an infestation of Godzillas. Like, that seems like a really natural place to go. The
next movie, I didn't read a whole ton into it, because again, we'll cover it one day, but like, the next movie was just going to be a classic. The baby Godzilla grows up and is more of a friendly Godzilla and fights another monster. So like, they were going to do the traditional route and basically do what Jan de Bont kind of wanted to do anyway.
But that's so like, weird, because your 3 movies,
it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Like, I think what's confusing is, like, there's a bunch of ideas in here that I think could be applied to several movies in a franchise. And I think that applies, I think it applies to how they're handling Godzilla. I also think it applies to how they're handling their big cast. I think there's a movie that exists. I want to ask you a question actually about the cast. I know we're kind of past the cast, but I think this works into what I'm trying to talk about. If you could take 3 people from this cast and cast them into another Godzilla movie, who would you pick?
Jean Reno, or playing the same character, or playing
anyone. They could be their same character, or they could be different. But like, you, instead of doing a Roland Emmerich cast, you're doing a more traditional 3 to 4 people.
Jean Reno, actually Hank Azaria, I think would have fun in a Godzilla movie. The third, I don't know. I'm stuck between Malcolm Danare, just to give him something to do, or Vicki Lewis. Honestly, Maria Pitillo, because I feel bad for her, but that's not my real answer. It's either Vicki Lewis or Malcolm Danare.
But I think even that much, I think, is illustrating kind of what I'm thinking now, is like, there's a bunch of stuff with the Godzilla story that they could have spread across several movies. One movie that introduces Godzilla and then maybe introduces its sort of unique biology. The second movie that introduces the swarm of Godzillas. The third movie, which starts with how this one ends, where there's a new Godzilla, and maybe that's the friendly one that fights a monster. So you've got a whole new problem. And then I think this cast could have been split across several movies and worked really well, I think, in several combinations. I think the Jean Reno, Vicki Lewis, Hank Azaria trio could work perfectly fine with their dynamic. I think you could even have one where, like, Kevin Dunn, Jean Reno, and Maria Pitillo could be. Like, I think there's a lot of different combinations that you could pull and just spread it all across several movies, and it would immediately make all of those entries better by slimming them down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think it's a weirdly bloated movie for a movie that also at certain points is kind of like dragging things out too long. It's really bizarre.
The whole Madison Square Garden bit, as much as I do love it, I think
it's very cool. I just don't think it belongs in this movie. It kind of might be my favorite
part of the movie, but it sticks out because it's just like, it feels like a detour from the movie, especially when the last act is just Godzilla coming back in another Godzilla sequence anyway.
That's a good point. And I think it requires Matthew Broderick's character to be removed from the task force in order to really be a part of that. And like, that also didn't need to happen. Like,
and I think it says a lot that they, out of this huge cast, they do have to scale it down to basically 4 people.
There you go.
In that Madison Square Garden bit.
Exactly.
Anyway,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally. There's your 4 people. I mean, I'm not picking Matthew Broderick, but like, if you're picking 4 people, that's good. That's actually a really good sort of traditional Godzilla cast right there, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
scientist, reporter, military. You got it right
exactly,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of went on a tangent there, but like it all started from the babies,
okay.
which I think are so cool. And I just wish that they were, I don't know, utilized differently, or that they weren't in this specific movie so that Godzilla could be focused on more.
Yeah.
And it is just so fucked up that they destroy all those.
Dude,
why introduce 200
upsetting.
babies to destroy them?
It's
why
upsetting. And it feels really weirdly mean-spirited, you know?
Right, especially because then like they're especially oh my god. The fact that Nick and Audrey like kiss in like a field of like Godzilla baby guts.
Oh my god.
It's like so
I
weird.
didn't even think of it like that. That's so gross.
It's so bizarre.
Ugh.
And then right after that we get Godzilla and the thing you were talking about that like they took great care to make a really crushing moment where Godzilla's nuzzling its children and they don't, it's not even like Godzilla goes on a rampage against the city. He just chases those specific people. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
And I'm like, yeah, I want their cab to get swallowed. They deserve it, bastards. Like, yeah, it's so weird. I do think it's fun when the cab is in the Godzilla's mouth. I think that's actually pretty fucking cool.
That is very cool. No, I love that. I actually really love that, and I would love to see that done again in a way that, you know,
in a better Godzilla
in a better movie. Yeah, because it's really cool. It's really cool
really
that
cool.
like one, you want Godzilla to pick up some kind of vehicle, right? Whether it's a train or a car or a truck or something. The fact that it's like a cab with at that point all of our four main characters kind of rules. Like,
I think it's really cool.
Really, really fun.
And genuinely don't know how they're gonna get out of it, you know. So
yeah. Oh, that's so brutal. Sticking like an electrical cable into his gums. Ugh.
God, they're so mean to this Godzilla. That's like one of the nicer Godzillas out of all Godzillas.
Yeah. That's what's weird. They just needed to make Godzilla like either the actual destructive force or they needed to have characters be sympathetic towards Godzilla, and they just didn't seem willing to do either.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's really weird.
It's frustrating. It's really weird. That's a lot of the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean,
there are plenty of things. That's a lot of fish, Doug.
That is a lot of fish. That is a lot of fish.
If you want to speak to like an unfunny line delivered in an unfunny way by an actor that's phoning it in, there's such a point too.
It's not weird for Roland Emmerich to make a long movie, but he is remarkably inefficient with his time in this movie.
Yeah.
And that is an example. Like it's unfun. It's an example of many things. It's an example of an unfunny joke. It's an example of Matthew Broderick phoning it in, and it's an example of how inefficient this movie is with its time because it's just unnecessary. It doesn't need to happen. I don't know. I mean, I guess it paid off. It's an iconic line from this movie, but for the right reasons, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I guess I don't really have anything specific to say anymore. I guess it's just overall of like, I don't know. It's I'm more disappointed in this movie than I am like angry at it for any reason. Mm-hmm. I think largely because I don't think it's a good Godzilla movie and I don't think it's a good Roland Emmerich movie, and I feel like you've got two shots there to do something that I would be here for. You know what I mean? Like I could see a version of this movie that's extremely like good Roland Emmerich that other people hate that I would be like cheering for. But it's like not even that. I was really hoping, Derek, I was hoping so bad. And one of the reasons that I watched all those Roland Emmerich movies is I was like, I know that this movie is not one that people like, but maybe I'll watch it and find like a cool Roland Emmerich movie and I can view it that way. It's part of that canon and not this canon. And I just didn't find it. I didn't find it.
Yeah. I think that's very, very damning that like he didn't even make a good Roland Emmerich movie.
It's probably the most damning.
Yeah. I would be remiss. My last thing that I had just very briefly.
Sure.
The musical album for this movie is so fucking hilarious.
Oh man.
It's so if you just because so much of the musical album is made up of like remixes, like Rage Against the Machine and Green Day songs, pre-existing famous songs that are just like remixed with Godzilla screonks. And then there's like a cover of a David Bowie song. There's like Puff Daddy sampling Jimmy Page. It's just weird. Oh, just
I can't wait to listen to this.
A bizarre collection of music And I know people think it's, I just wanted to call it out because it's like famously a bizarre album of music.
Genuinely will listen to this tonight when we're done.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. So funny.
Yeah.
I think we tried, Derek. I think we tried. I think we did the best we could outside of the context even of the movie's reputation. I really wanted to find what I was looking for, and I just I guess we found the album, and we can sort of be happy with that.
Well, and
and there is cool stuff in there. I hope you all believe us when we pointed out the stuff we like.
I've never bummed that when I have to watch. I've said I've seen this movie a fucking 100 times. I don't like it, but I also do like. I don't like the movie. I like watching the movie. I think that's where I land.
I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
If they reshowed this in a theater, I would go to watch it.
Absolutely. This would be such a fun
I think a lot of you all
theaters.
would too. If you're here, reveling in the fact that we ultimately don't think this is a good movie, you would go watch it in theaters too. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. This would be such a fucking fun one to watch with the crowd.
How old is this movie? This was 1998. So 30 years will be in 3 years.
Oh boy.
Do you think they're never going to, no, theaters would never.
They would not dare. They would not dare. And I don't know exactly what the rights with this movie is, but if Toho has even the slightest bit of say in this movie getting re-released in some way, they would say no. So
that's right.
And I don't know how much power they would have or not with this, honestly. But if they did, they would make sure it doesn't happen.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know you're not doing predictions, but is there anything else you have for me going into the next episode or next sort of stage?
Well, I think what I should say is what's coming up, because there's a little bit of weirdness is why I'm not doing predictions right now. First of all, keep an eye on this feed. I don't know the exact date for it, but we will have a little surprise drop of a cool interview that we did. It doesn't really fit into a regular episode. We want to just relegate it to Patreon. So you're just going to get a little bonus mini episode sometime this month. So keep an eye out for that. Next month, I'm going to be in Japan through Christmas and New Year's.
Whoa!
So we're not going to have a regular episode for January, but we are leaving you empty-handed. So the plan is January 13th, we're going to re-release what was previously a Godzilla-related Patreon episode onto the main feed for everyone. You'll find out what it is when it drops, but it's very fun. So we're going to release that. But if you're already a patron, you've already heard that episode, there will still be new material for you, because assuming that everything goes right, and if timing works out right, I will plan to include a recap episode about my trip to Japan, where I talked to Doug about my trip in Japan, because I have a lot of Godzilla specific things that I plan to be doing there as well. So that'll be on January 13th. Obviously, haven't recorded that yet. So hopefully that all works out. But you'll be getting something. You will be getting something in your feed this month as a little bonus, and you will be getting something on January 13th as well as a little bonus. And on that episode on the 13th, I think we'll reveal our schedule for the next few months of 2025, if that hasn't already been published on social media at that point. And then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming in February.
Predictions. Since we have extra time, I want folks to tell us what they think we're doing next.
Yeah.
If you think you've picked up on patterns, let us know.
Oh yeah. What you think we're gonna do in February?
Because you haven't announced. There's no announcement about what February's movie is gonna be. So I'm curious to see what people think the next thing will be.
Yeah. Look, I already got some cool stuff planned. Got some really cool guests planned for 2025 as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to announce it yet because I want to have the trip to Japan first and make sure nothing happens.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because that might adjust when things come out. But tentatively, the schedule for the first few months of 2025 are very, very cool and very, very excited.
I'm excited.
Very, very exciting. So, yeah. Also, shout out to our guest cover artist for today's episode, Victor Munguia, also known as Vic Monstrous. I'll link to all of his pages in our show notes. But he did a really cool drawing of this Godzilla, and of course, with lots of fish in the picture too. So definitely check that out. If you don't see it on the podcast app that you're using, go to glitterjaw.com. We've got a cover art gallery of all of the cover art that we have for these episodes.
Yes.
Speaking of Glitterjaw, if you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about media, check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and Instagram at GlitterjawPods. And also, we've plugged this a couple of times already, but we do have a new podcast. If you like monthly movie podcasts like we do, the Q Division is a new podcast that's out this month where Gavin and Chels are going through the James Bond filmography. Gavin has seen all of them. Chels is new to them. So similar to our dynamic of Skrionk, they're doing it with James Bond movies. Definitely check that out. They're a part of Glitterjaw. Find on glitterjaw.com and anywhere you get your podcasts. Otherwise, Doug, people want to find you and at you about your hot takes about the Godzilla 1998 movie.
Yeah, so spicy.
Yeah. Where can they do that?
You can find me all over the place at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. And you can listen to me on a podcast called Walloping Web Snappers that you and I do together weekly. It's a Spider-Man cartoon deep dive podcast. And you can listen to me on Novel Gaming, which is a podcast where my friend Katie and I catch up on all the books, video games, and sometimes other media we've been consuming lately. I did mention on that podcast I was watching Roland Emmerich movies, but I didn't get too much into it. I saved it for this one.
Love that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. What about you, Derek?
Sure, you can find me in most places at Derek B. Gale. In addition to what Doug mentioned, you can find me on podcasts like Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which I do with my friend Tommy, where we are going through the Simpsons video games chronologically, all the Simpsons tie-in video games. So we also do coverage of Simpsons history and video game history and pop culture history as well. And I also do Gimmicks with my friend David, where we look at high concept and experimental structure-breaking gimmicky episodes of television. All of those are on Glitterjaw. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. That's, of course, the name of our Spider-Man podcast, but it covers and supports everything that Doug and I do together. So if you want to support this show, that's the place to go. And we do have Godzilla bonus episodes that come out repeatedly. There will have just recently been one on the Marvel Godzilla comics that came out at the end of November. That was a really fun one. So check that out. And we have plenty more coming up in 2025 as well. Check out our Discord. There's a link to that in the show notes if you want to chat with other listeners. And you can email us at skrionkpodcast@gmail.com if you have any thoughts or questions or feedback. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And in 2025, we'll be back with surely much better Godzilla movies. Almost 3 hours of fish, Doug. That really is a lot of fish.
I'm not surprised, you know?
I'm not either.
See ya.
See ya.
Mouth dry.
A lot of fish.